Epic Gaming Night is sponsored by Analog Gamer. Check out Analog Gamer for high-quality board game apparel. You can find Epic Gaming Night shirts and much more at analoggamer.com. This is Epic Gaming Night, a podcast about board games and the stories and relationships they create. Welcome to the Epic Gaming Night podcast, a podcast about tabletop games, but mostly board games. I'm your host, Roy Canada, and with me, as always, is Frozen Matt. Oh, wait, hold on a second.
Random noise. Like
Frozen Matt! Really introduce yourself again. And Rob.
Hold on. Should you come in like because you're like frozen like cold? Or are you frozen as in like literally frozen and then you shouldn't say anything because you're frozen?
I was gonna go with like computer frozen to where it's like I make noises, but the issue is I can't like make those stuttery noises where it's like you know,
like Skype
does all the
time.
It's
pretty good, pretty good. But yeah, so Skype is being crazy with us, so we're starting a little bit late today, but we're super stoked because we're going to do a board game Blitz episode where we're going to talk about all the hot games that we've played.
Woo, football.
Wait, what?
I like
Blitz.
football.
Awesome.
Down sit hut.
So Rob wasn't here on our last episode. Me and Matt talked a lot about the exciting stuff that happened at Gen Con. We missed you last episode, Rob.
I missed you guys.
Anything you want to say to the people before we start just going through the massive amounts of games?
First of all, I had an absolute blast at Gen Con. I spent money and I had a good time. But I just want to say it was so cool meeting everybody. I love Ashes. I love the Ashes community, and it's funny, I play with a lot of people online via TTS and other formats, and I got to meet a lot of these people, and just had an absolute blast hanging out with the guys from the Main Action podcast, and there's even a guy from like the Ashtray podcast, but Christian Pratt, Papa Pratt, Eric Rodriguez, and a bunch of other guys just had a great time. But the other great thing about hanging out with the Ashes people is Isaac was there. I feel like I spent a decent amount of time with Isaac. Had a really good time hanging out with Isaac Vega. And then I got to see a bunch of crazy games and exhibits. And I had fans come up to me. And we took some awkward pictures, and I had some that we didn't take pictures. We just like said hi and shook hands and stuff like that. So that was really cool. Really, really, really enjoyed myself. And then what I like so much more about this year than other years in the past is like the after the expo hanging out. When we were playing with Emerson, and I don't know if we're allowed to go into this, or we can go into it when we talk about the game. But when we played Secret Hitler with Emerson, I feel like we broke him as a person, and we can get into that later. But I was totally thrown off guard, and it was scary but beautiful at the same time. But I just had a blast hanging out with Emerson Matsuchi, who's just such a talented designer. And then we got to hang out with Dan King, and I got to spend a little bit of time with Stephen Avery, and then I awkwardly stalked Tom Vassell. I didn't mean to, but like, I would see him walking around in random places, and I'd just be like, "Hey, Tom!"
Just the whole convention, you were just yelling, "Hey, Tom!" at him every time.
And we went to St. Elmo's for dinner, and his daughter was with him. And I was like, "Oh, man, that's your daughter. That's great. You guys having a good time?" And just totally giving him, like, the creep eye and the creep talk. And he's like, "Yeah, I gotta go." I said, "I bet you do gotta go, man. It's great seeing you." And it was just, like, even Matt was there. It was awkward.
Rob's job is just to, like, make the Dice Tower guys as uncomfortable as possible.
That wasn't my goal or intentions.
But it became a thing.
It completely was my thing. And I wasn't even trying to do it. But anyway, so that was fun. But I also had so much fun with Brandon Pleshik. What a great bunkmate. If you ever get a chance to lay down. That mustache. He has the Joe Dirt of mustaches. If you guys are familiar with Joe Dirt, he grows in his sideburns all like redneck, white trash like. And Brandon Pleshik, at first I thought it was a design because he's kind of like an artsy guy. I thought, okay, maybe he's just shaving that part right there in the middle to be like artsy. No, it's natural. It naturally does not grow in like that. I posted the picture on Instagram and Twitter and stuff. But besides that, he is so sweet. I mean, just hanging out with Hector and Matt and you and Brandon and Emerson and a bunch of other people and hanging out with all the people in the Ashes community, like Robert Klutz. He's the main Ashes playtester. Like, Isaac asks him what the rules are.
That's awesome.
So, it was really cool just to meet all these people and to have fun. This year, I did more events than I've done in the past, and I really, really enjoyed myself. Learned a lot of good information, and but I really, really enjoyed Gen Con and handed out a bunch of dice. Met random people. I mean, I don't know. I could talk about it, and I know I'm repeating myself, but that's just how much fun I had. And it's just as I say it, I think about what happened, especially the whole thing with Emerson. And I think it was like 1:00 in the morning, and we broke Emerson.
It was pretty late.
We can save that a little bit for when we get.
Yeah, we'll
down
save that.
to
But
it.
anyway, had a blast. Bought some games. Also bought a house, and so it was officially the most expensive Gen Con for me ever. Webcam is working. I can see the beautiful Matt Robbins now.
Thanks, Bear.
So,
Oh man.
but anyway, glad to be back.
Nice.
Thanks, man.
Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get into the whole.
The hole. I say we just jump right in the hole. You got it right.
I'm
This
so
is gonna
confused
be
trying
a-
to fix the whole video issues we got going on. We look
It's
great
fine.
now.
We'll
Yes.
segue this way. Well, this is what we've been playing this week, but for the past like 4 weeks, just all condensed down into what we played at Gen Con.
We did the same thing last year. We just go through and talk about tons of new games, and we're basically just giving you like a brief rundown of the themes / mechanics and our first impressions of the game. So these aren't supposed to be like crazy in-depth reviews or anything like that. These are just what we thought of our experience with these games. So we're going to take turns here a little bit. We've got in alphabetical orders, and the people that have played the games are going to talk about the games that they actually played. So I guess I'll start us off with Arcane Academy. This is a game from Eric Lang and Kevin Wilson from IGN. It's like a interesting little... It's kind of hard to explain, but you start with this board with a whole bunch of like grid spaces, and there's a couple like spaces on there you can place little tokens to take actions, and those actions are things like, hey, gain more crystals that give you items, or hey, gain more like mental fortitude, and then you use those to cast spells and buy items, and the items and spells trigger abilities and give you points. So it's very like Euro-y, I guess, a little bit, but not really, because it's all these crazy abilities and powers going off, but there's no like luck besides the like cards that come out. So you're just buying these cards, using those cards, getting points, getting resources to buy those cards, that sort of thing. But it's got this whole like arcane magic academy where you're like these wizard students or spellcaster students like going out and trying to learn all these spells and best the other students. I guess you're preparing for a test, and once you get 8 of these items / spells out, then the game ends. Whoever has the most points wins. I played with my friend Trevor. It was pretty light, really quick game, and there wasn't that much to it. Like, it wasn't difficult to get into, difficult to learn. It's basically exactly sort of the thing you would expect from like a light Euro, but very thematic in the whole spellcasting wizard stuff. So if you're into like that sort of game, like this one's solid. So and it's made by Eric Lang, so he doesn't play around most of the time, but a little bit different of a game than we've seen from that. There's not a ton of player interaction in this game. There's a few cards you can draft that'll be like, oh, mess up the points off of their items or this or that, but there's not a whole lot of stuff that's really like, I'm screwing my opponent over, or they're screwing me over. There's a teeny bit of stuff depending on the spells you play, but it's mostly like min-max your actions, get resources, use those resources to get points.
That's odd, because
light
that actually
Euro.
seems like a theme that would lend itself really well to like a ton of like player interaction. Not necessarily so much like take that mechanic, but kinda. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean it could, and there is a teeny bit of that, but like I think the only card I can remember that was really played was Churro played a card on me that took like I had a whole bunch of items that I had done a thing that like allowed me to put prestige tokens on them, which gave me extra points for those items. He played a card that basically made me discard all of those points or whatever, which only like lost me like 3 points, but still it's like, oh, 3 points. I lost 3 points. But I won the game by 1 point, so if he hadn't done that, I would have been a few more points ahead. It was a really close game, but it was fun because you're taking actions with these tiles, but you're also using actions on your board to gain more tiles that basically give you new actions, and you can kind of chain them together. The mechanics are really interesting and kind of unique in that way, but overall, light Euro-y type game. So, and that is Arcane Academy.
Boom.
Boom.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the next one, which is another game that only I've played. Is
Yeah.
Arkham Horror, the living card game. I think I talked about this a little bit on the last podcast.
Yeah,
As
a
far
little
as
bit.
like the announcement, and we had talked about it forever ago when it was leaked, but I got to play the demo of this game. It's basically like very similar to like the Lord of the Rings card game meets Arkham Horror, but then even more like role-playing-ish elements added in. So you're playing the role as an investigator. Your teammate is playing the role of an investigator as well. You can play this game solo by yourself, and you have a deck of cards that your investigator uses to try to trigger like the different things on the board and stuff like that. And you can get items, you get resources, and you can play those items down and different things like that. It's very much about like exploring. Like in the game we played, you start off in a house, and the door to the house, like you're in your study, and the door disappears to the study, and you're like, oh man, how do I get out? And you have to go through like the cellar floor that's under a carpet or something like that, and you're like digging around trying to figure out what's going on so you can open your parlor door because there's some sort of magic presence coming from that area. So it's all very like thematic, based on like the scenario you're playing is going to feel very different, but it's all in the Arkham Horror like Lovecraft world. One of the things that I thought was really exciting about this game is as you defeat creatures and monsters, you get experience, and the experience that you get at the end of the game, you can use to upgrade your deck. So it's an LCG where you're building your deck, but you can only build your deck based on the parameters of how much experience you have. So you kind of start with like a pre-constructed deck, but you're only allowed to switch out certain things, and you have to spend your experience to customize your deck. So it's not like, okay, let's build a completely new deck for this scenario and build a completely new deck for that scenario. You just build the deck as you go along, which actually makes it more interesting for me as opposed to the Lord of the Rings LCG. But you're going around trying to investigate and get clues from the different locations, and when you get a certain number of clues, you can advance the story of the game, which unlocks more things and unlocks more rooms for you to go into, to go through. And the scenario we're playing, at the end you have to fight like a giant ghoul guy and try to like, if you beat him then you progress in the scenario. And apparently the guy who was doing it for us said that you have options. You can either like run away from the house and stuff like that, or you can burn the house down, and depending on like the way you go depends on which scenario you play next and like where you progress. So there's like choose your own adventure elements in the game even further. So it seems super interesting. It's a game that I definitely want to pick up because I like LCGs that are cooperative, because I have an issue with like collectible card games and LCGs and like games that like expand very rapidly and are competitive, because if you don't have the cash flow or the time to keep up, you just fall behind and you're never going to be able to continue like playing on the same level as everybody else is. With these cooperative games, it doesn't matter because it's cooperative and you can just get the packs at whatever rate you want to get them. So like the Lord of the Rings card game, I have a few of it. If I want to get another quest to play, I can just get a quest to play and play that with my friends with the cards that I have, and it's not that big of a deal. As where if I want to get into Netrunner now, I'd have to drop like $1,000 just to play. I did play Netrunner, and they just kept coming out with expansions so fast that I couldn't keep up. Great games. I have 2 kids and a mortgage. Can't keep up.
Yeah.
So that is the Arkham Horror Living card game. Yeah.
Next is the Ashes expansions for Victoria and Leo. I'm not going to go over the mechanics necessarily or the theme for the game. You guys have heard me talk about both of those a lot. But I will talk about some of my favorite cards that have come out for those expansions real quick. So Leo Sun Shadow is actually the Phoenix-born that won the big tournament that they had at Gen Con.
Oh,
Leo's
nice.
got this amazing card that comes out. It's called Glowfinch. It's this little itty bitty, really annoying, stupid bird that's super amazing. And the Glowfinch has got like zero attack. It's not there to attack. It's there to mess with other people when they try to make attacks. And it has unit guard ability. It has decoy. So if you're trying to hurt somebody else's unit, it can bring that damage onto itself. It also has last request. When this unit is destroyed, discard one card off the top target player's draw pile. And so Ashes, you only have 30 cards. So discarding cards is a really big deal. You don't want to do that in Ashes. And then it has Magic Rejuvenation, where you can remove an alteration spell attached to the unit from the game. If you do, remove all exhaustion tokens from this unit. That doesn't sound that great at first, but to do the Glowfinch's ability of decoy, and then you put an alteration spell on it, and then you remove the alteration to be able to do decoy again multiple times in a round, that's really big. That's really important. And so the Glowfinch is it's kind of beast. It's kind of balling, and it played a really big role in both games. Well, in the championship game, both players had Glowfinch and had Leo, and did a really good job. I will say though, I know I'm talking about Leo and Victoria. The meta for Ashes is not all brand new cards. Now, it sounds a little weird saying that, even though it was brand new cards that made it into the championship. They only had a couple of those new cards. In the finals, Aerodale was in the top 8. Cole, there were 2 decks that had Cole in the top 8.
Yeah, yeah.
If you watch or play Ashes, you know Cole is like one of the first Phoenix-born that everyone hated and discarded. Cole, 2 of the top 8 decks had Cole. There was Aerodale, there was Brennan, there was Leo, I think there was a Victoria. So there were a lot more decks that didn't have the new meta cards or didn't have the new meta Phoenix-born compared to what had the Phoenix-born. And the guys that used Leo really used him well because of his card, of the Glowfinch card. And the Glowfinch card is specific just to him. So that was the reason why they used that card. But it was great because when I was at the tournament, I saw a lot of cards that I never even considered. Because I'm one of those guys where, well, they're coming out with new cards. The new cards should be better. And a lot of my decks have a lot of the new cards from the previous meta that came out with Ren and Brennan. No, there were people bringing back Three-Eyed Owl and bringing back, I think I saw a guy effectively use Iron or Rhino. I want to say Rhino Hero. Iron Rhino and stuff like that. And so it was really cool to be able to see cards that are being used that I guess normal Ashes players kind of gave up on. And so that was good to see. Next card is Victoria Glassfire. She is beautiful artwork. So is Leo. He's a handsome stud. Victoria is Fernanda's favorite Phoenix-born to draw. Fernanda Suarez is a lady who does all the artwork for Ashes. She is extremely talented. She was there at Gen Con. I had her sign a couple more of my cards. But the card that I want to talk about for Victoria is not her signature card that she comes with. She has this stupid little card, and it's not stupid. I say stupid in a polite, awesome way. It's called the Summon Shadow Spirit. This card is so OP for 1 dice. Now, granted, it's the Wolf Power dice for the illusion,
Right.
but for 1 dice, you get to place a Shadow Spirit Conjuration onto the field. A Shadow Spirit is 2x, so it has 2 attack, and it has X life. X life equals to however many Summon Shadow Spirit cards you have out there. So if you have 1, it's got 2 attack, 1 life. But for 1 dice, you're getting out this unit that has 2 attack. And then if you throw down another Summon Shadow Spirit for 1 dice, still 2/2. I mean, it starts to really become a threat and really become a problem. It's probably my favorite newest card out of all the cards that have come out. The Summon Shadow Spirit is just, I love it. I love the price of it. I love the ability to be able to make it a threat or not make it a threat. So that's my favorite one that came with Victoria.
So seeing that Leo won the whole
Sure.
Gen Con thing, I'm guessing that these 2 expansion decks really shook up the meta.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I just talked about that. They did and they didn't. They used Leo, the Phoenix-born, but they only used like a couple of the new meta cards. They integrated a lot of the old cards as well into the game, and so it wasn't just just Leo. The reason why these guys, in my opinion, use Leo is because of his ability for the Glowfinch. I mean, he's got this Glowfinch card, and that's his main card. Is that's his ability, and it only costs a side action, and it costs one basic die. Place a Glowfinch Conjuration on your battlefield.
It's pretty
He's
good.
only got 19 health. 19 health. He's got 6 battlefield, and he's only got 3 spell boards. And so, being able to use that Glowfinch and not have to use it as a spell board card, but it's his own card, helps out a lot. But yeah, it's just yes. I mean, you can't say that they weren't great or successful because it was a new Phoenixborn that won the tournament. But at the same time, I don't think it's as overpowering as people may think. It's not like Netrunner where you need those brand new cards. People were very competitive using old cards. Like I said, Cole. I mean, you know who Cole is,
Right.
yeah. In the top 8. In fact, the guy who I thought was going to win the whole thing was a Cole deck, and what he was able to do with that deck was phenomenal. I didn't watch his matches in the top 8. I know he made it to the top 4 undefeated,
That's
and
awesome.
then he lost out there, but he made a couple mistakes. But his deck was just so stupid. I don't know how they caught him, but it was just ridiculous. Eric Rodriguez is who I consider to be one of the best players of Ashes. Eric couldn't handle the deck. In fact, Eric got bad luck because that was his first draw was against Elliot, who's also another phenomenal player. And playing this new deck just was brutal. Then the last Phoenixborn I want to talk about, who was not part of the meta, but if you pre-ordered the Phoenixborn, you could get him. It's Auric Gilstein. Auric has got a really cool ability. He also comes with really cool allies. His ability says that you can re-roll dice, but you can only re-roll one of each color. And so what I like about Auric is I think he's going to become a factor when new cards come out. Or when not new cards, but when new dice come out. Because the next Phoenixborn to come out are bringing 2 brand new dice sets with them. It's going to be like yellow and white. And the other one's going to be like green and something, if I remember correctly. But he's able to bring back 4 dice of any color, just one of each though. And his battlefield's not very big. His spell board's good at 4, but his allies, they're expensive, but they cost 4 basic. But they have 2 attack, 5 life, but they can counter, and it doesn't cost an exhaustion token to counter. And they recover 3, so they can just sit there and absorb a lot of crap. They can absorb, and they can counter back, and they can keep countering back because they don't have to exhaust themselves to counter back. And so these new cards that came out, I really want to change up for my Brennan deck, not only because I got wrecked in the Ashes tournament with my Brennan deck, but it's making me consider some new stuff, and I really want to try to do something with Orc. But the new Ashes cards, you don't need them to play the game. You don't need them to play the game. But anything that Plaid Hat does is only going to be good in quality components and cards and stuff like that.
And it's worth it for the art alone.
Oh, for $15, you're going to get like 30 something new cards and all this stuff. It's absolutely worth it for the art alone. Fernanda's so absolutely talented, and it's just a really great community. I mean, everybody. I'm sitting there talking smack as I'm getting destroyed, and everyone's just been really cool, having a great time, being very chill. That's Ashes, Rise of the Phoenixborn, the Victoria, and Leo. If you want to hear more about their cards and exactly what they have to do, the main action, I think their last 2 podcasts that are out actually specifically go over Victoria and Leo, and they're all about Ashes. I mean, I would be all about Ashes as well. But I like board games.
No, I'm just kidding.
So, but anyway, yeah, a lot of fun. It's worth it. And if you want to play, if you enjoy the hobby, I'd consider getting them. You don't need them, but I'd get them. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm excited for this review because I bought this game. I just haven't played this game yet. So,
next up in the list, we've got Bloodborne, the card game that came out recently that Eric Lang designed. So me and Roy played it last Friday.
That's a different game.
What?
I'm just kidding. Never mind.
You said last Friday.
Gotcha. But that one's technically the last Friday.
Right.
Wow. I don't know. But yeah, so I was curious to see how the game was going to play. First off, because it's a Bloodborne game, and so if you've ever played any of the video games or any of the Souls games, which is what Bloodborne is sort of based on, it's very uh, crazy, and you will die, and you will get frustrated, and you will break things, and you will have a tantrum like you did when you were 12, and
Okay.
it's oddly cathartic. And I was like, how do you translate this sort of rage and aggression to a board game, and not to mention a card game?
Yeah.
In that regard, it doesn't really do that much. But what it does do, because Eric Lang is the designer, is it's a press your luck game, sort of in the same styling as like the closest thing I can compare it to is Ink and Gold. I don't know if you have an easier comparison,
I
Roy,
think
that more people might
that's
get.
the same one that I'd make. So
But effectively, the way the game works is each person represents a hunter, and you're going and fighting a particular enemy out of the enemy's deck, and then you have to get through the entire enemy's deck to fight the big boss monster at the very end. And each thing you fight, you have a certain number of cards you can use to fight it, and then these things do damage to the creature that you're fighting. And when you get to do damage, you get to take blood tokens off of it, which are the points for how you win. But when you take the blood tokens, they kind of sit in your reserve, and you have to technically leave the fight to bank them. Otherwise, they can be stolen or lost. So it's really interesting because it's kind of press your luck, but unlike Ink and Gold, it isn't just press your luck against the deck, it's press your luck against the other people who are around you, or press your luck against, oh, I don't know, this one monster rolls a red die, which is real bad, so I mean, he can just straight murder me, or I don't know. It's very interesting. I wasn't expecting it to be that great, just because I was like, oh man, Bloodborne in a card game. Woo. But it wasn't bad. I would definitely play it again.
yeah.
I don't know that I personally would buy it. It's not necessarily my style of game. The artwork in it is fantastic, though, because it's taken from the game. But it's definitely a very good game. What do you think, Roy?
I think it is like a solid filler, and I mean it feels like
Yeah.
like Ink and Gold advanced. Like if you want Ink and Gold with like a little bit more going on, or like maybe the more gamery like dark theme, it's that sort of thing. The cool thing about this, as opposed to Ink and Gold, when you go back from the questing out there and trying to get stuff, like you're basically out of the game until somebody like stops or dies. In this game, when you go back and bank your blood, which is what you try to do, you bank your blood so that way you're not going to lose it if you die. Basically the next turn you're right back in the game, so you're back right there trying to fight the monsters and get more blood. It's very determined on like the turn order, so it's like, oh man, I'm gonna like last in the turn order, like what should I do? I might as well just bank my blood because I'm not gonna get any out of this monster. They're gonna murder it before me. But it's kind of interesting too. The damage that the monster does has this exploding dice mechanic, which like we got super lucky in our game. There was just lots of zeros rolled, but basically there's like plus symbols on some of the dice. So it'll be like, oh, the monster does 4 damage plus, so then you roll the die again. And if it continues to get pluses, it just keeps adding to the amount of damage it does to the players. And you only have 8 hit points, so if it does tons of damage, everybody's going to die and all your banked blood's going to go away. So it's trying to figure out when to run and when to stay. Very much like Ink and Gold, but with cool items you can get. And that's Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next game on our list here is Brick Party, which is a party game of like communication and building things with these very much Lego-like bricks. So basically in this game you split up into teams of like 2. One person will be building, the other person will be like describing what needs to be built. But there are rules in the game that come into play, which say you can only describe, or like the different players have to do things in specific ways, which make it super interesting. So the different things that you build are worth like different points. You have like cards with like the picture of like the outline of what it should look like, and you're trying to convey that to your teammate without them looking at the card. So you're like, oh man, well first start with like a four piece, like a bottom, and then okay, now you need to put like a slanted one, like no, the other slanted one, and stuff like that. But there'll be like different rules that come into play where your partner who's building the thing has to keep their eyes closed the entire time. She's like, okay, no, grab that piece over there and grab it and put it on there. And whoever, it's a real-time game because you're playing against the other players who are also trying to yell at their teammate and tell them what to build at the same time. And whoever can build their thing first, they say, oh, done. And then they see if it actually matches. If it matches, then you get those points. So you and your teammate are working together to try to get this stuff done. I think the teammates like switches up in between rounds too. So like if you and your teammate successfully do one, then you both get those points and you put those points in like in your score pile. But then you can like switch teammates and you're just trying to work with different people so that you both succeed and then you get the points. It's a game that I don't have. I just watched it played, but I definitely want to like get it just because you're building things with Lego bricks and you're trying to communicate with each other in real time what to do with all these crazy rules. So it looks like a ton of fun. And that is Brick Party. Have you guys seen this game?
Nope.
No, but I've heard multiple people talk about it.
Yeah.
One of my concerns is like I've heard people say that it's hard, especially when you're trying to do like the Lego stuff with one hand. Not that that's an issue. I think that's fun tactic to a game, but I've heard people complain about some of the scenarios where you have to build things seem impossible.
Some of the rules.
Yeah.
Well, it might just be geared for that one person that has the bigger hands and can just make it happen.
What? Big hands help in this one?
Maybe. Or maybe they're too clumsy to be able to put the Legos together. I don't know.
It's not that we're clumsy. It's just there's a lot of hand around little pieces.
Awesome.
Ladies.
I guess I get to describe the next one too. It is Captain Sonar. We talked a lot about this on the last podcast, so I'll try to go quick on this. It is another real-time game where there are teams. Normally it's teams of 4, and you are trying to basically like a giant real-time game of Battleship almost is the theme, but there's a lot more going on. You have a captain who's yelling out different directions that they're going. You have this board in front of you with a whole bunch of dots on it, and you're moving from dot to dot, but there's all these islands and stuff in the way, so you can go north, south, east, or west. You can't go back across your own like lines that you've already made, so you can't like backtrack at all, and you're trying to cruise around and find your enemy ships. At the same time, the sonar guy on your team is trying to listen, because you have to say out loud as the captain what you're doing. They're trying to listen to what their opponent's team, where they're going, and they're writing down on this little transparency and putting it over their own version of the map, trying to see how it fits around the islands, and maybe they can find out where their opponent's ship is. Then you have what was your role, Matt, called?
I don't even know.
The guy who checks off the different items. They check off and start to like basically ready the torpedoes, or ready the mines, or ready the drones, or ready the silence like movement and stuff like that. And then you have like the engineer guy who has to X off different things in the north, south, east, west coordinate. There's a big like sub thing, and they're trying to X different things off. And if they X off too many of the same area, you're going to take damage. If they X off certain types, you can't trigger those like torpedoes. Like if he X's off one of the X or the attack ones, you can't shoot torpedoes while that's X'd. Then there's also ways to X off things so that you can erase them all. There's like a chain. So if he X's off things in the chain, he can erase it all and basically heal it. So he's trying to figure out how to X off things in the proper order and get the captain to move around in the proper order so that you're not having to take damage for doing crazy things. But all of the X's go away if you surface with your ship. If you surface, then you get to erase all the X's that are on the engineering board, and he has to like trace a line around different sections of the ship. Each player has to trace this line and keep it in the lines, show it to the other team, and if it looks fine, then you get to rejoin the real-time aspect of the game. What we're trying to do is find your opponent's ship and shoot it with torpedoes and missiles and blow them up. They each have 3 hull points, or 4 hull points. If they take 4 damage, then they're going to blow up. Torpedoes, if they hit directly, do 2 damage. If they hit adjacent, they do 1 damage. And mines are the same way. But mines you can like leave behind and like trigger them at like a later time. You can say, okay, stop. Now we're going to blow up the mine. It blows up here. Does it actually hit you? So super interesting game. This is the game we played with Dan King and Emerson. I talked a lot about our playthrough last week on the podcast, so if you want to hear more, check that out. But super exciting real-time game that actually feels semi-thematic. Some roles are more intensive than others, but
yeah,
definitely a lot of fun.
I was gonna say that's my one complaint is that the role I played was probably the easiest role, and so eventually it gets to a point where there's not much for me to do. That being said, it is definitely a very good party game that you could probably take somewhere if you have 8 people, mind you, and kind of bust it out and be like, all right, guys, we're gonna scream at each other for a little bit and see who wins in sub-to-sub combat. So.
It feels a lot like Space Cadets Dice Duel with it's a lot less fiddly. Like, even though that sounds weird, it's still real time, but it's easier to explain, easier to get into, I think. Because we were playing the game, it was the first time any of us had played it, and like once we had been playing the game for a little bit, like we understood what was going on. So it's like, okay, we got this. Let's do this. And Emerson's OP. He's like the best. He's the reason we won that game.
Yeah, man. The guy who designs hidden movement games for a living.
He found their hidden movement.
Pretty good at the hidden movement.
It was the best. So we just need to have Emerson on our team every time. We'll just like, if he's not here to play it with us, we'll just like FaceTime him or like Skype him or something. Be like, dude, man, just listen. We'll put this microphone over beside them, just track down, and then you tell us where you think they are. We'll wreck them every time. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, another one for Matt.
Okay, so the next up, we've got a game called Clank. I had not heard of it at all until our friend Trevor was like, dude, there's this game. It's called Clank. It's like a deck builder, but also like a dungeon crawler. And I was like, okay, sounds interesting. So we ended up playing it last weekend. And it is exactly that. It is a deck builder and a dungeon crawler. And it's very strange, but it is really, really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But the basis of the game is that everybody playing is some sort of, I don't know, person who's after treasure. I don't know what you want to call that. Just general scoundrel.
Adventurer,
I don't know.
Whatever.
Yeah, that'll work. And so you start off at the top of a castle, and then there's a map that is laid out, and you have a little meeple that you can move. And so you start out with a deck of 10 cards in your hand. Consists of 5 cards. So there are certain cards that add clank to the board, which are little cubes that you have to put somewhere on the board that represents sort of your noise going through the dungeon. There are cards that give you movement that allow you to move through different rooms. There are cards that give you attack. There are cards that give you spending power so that you can buy recruit other cards out of the recruitment board, just like your normal deck building sort of legendary style game. But the ultimate goal is to run through the cavern and pick up a bunch of treasure or a bunch of things that are worth victory points and try to get back out alive before you get destroyed. So the way that works are the noise tokens that I had just talked about. Whenever a card with a dragon symbol comes out, all of the cubes that were there that represented noise go into a bag with a bunch of black cubes. And then a couple of them are drawn out randomly. And so these now get placed out on the board. The black cubes don't do anything, but if a cube of your color is drawn, that represents that you like took a hit. And I think you have like 10 or so HP in total. And it gets real tense because you're sitting there and at first you're like, okay, we're drawing 2 cubes. I don't really care. Yeah, hit me, whatever. And then by the end you're like trying to like get out of the caverns that are below the castle and get back into the castle so that you won't be just utterly massacred. And then if you can escape without dying, you get like extra bonus points, and it's like it gets kind of insane. And the neat thing about the game is that it ends pretty much when you want it to. So you go down, and if you think you have accumulated enough points, you can then turn around and head back up to the top. And then once you exit, that kind of triggers the end game, and then there are 5 turns for everybody else to like scramble and try to get back. But it's really interesting, really fun. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, Roy?
I thought it was amazing. It feels like deck building meets like Infiltration, which is like another pressure luck game, but it's like
Yeah.
Infiltration, you're trying to go in and get like the data things. This, you're trying to go in and get treasure. But this is also interesting because there are all these like monsters and stuff you could fight and get points, and then all these cool cards you could recruit. You could get more cards that have a lot of movement. You could get more cards that have a lot of attacks, so you could fight off more monsters. You could get cards that like gave you more money, which you could use this like underground market to buy different items. Like Matt's strategy was just like buy all the items.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it was fun. I'm pretty sure I wrecked that game. It was stupid, but it was a lot of fun. I got a whole bunch of really good cards. Got my deck building engine like going, so I could move a whole lot. So I got down in the dungeon, got a key, like got the stuff I wanted, and then like Trevor like ran real early, so he had less points, but he was hoping we were gonna die before we got out.
We almost did.
Which we almost did. It's pretty close.
I did. I straight up died.
It's kind of interesting because if you get out, you just get 20 extra points, which 20 is a decent amount in this game. So if you leave, you get points. You get a bunch of points. But if you can stay in there a little bit longer and get a little bit more treasure and then leave a little bit later and still get that 20 points, you're going to be even better than the person that left early. So it's this whole thing of like, should I leave early? Should I stay in and try to scrounge everything up? Do I get a whole bunch of movement cards so I can try to like run really far and get as far out as I can? There's like the dungeon depths at the very bottom. If you die in the dungeon depths, you don't have any points at the end of the game. If you get halfway up, like halfway like to the bottom like edge of the castle, then you can get you get your points that you have accumulated during the game, but you don't get the extra 20 points for escaping. So it was a lot of fun. So definitely one of the best games I've played like out of Gen Con. I think it's great.
Absolutely.
What it's pretty cool because it's like deck builders are hard for me to like compare because one of my favorite games is like Legendary, and I love it like as a cooperative game, but this is an awesome like competitive deck building game. Like I've played tons of Dominion, I've played Ascension, I've played all like Thunderstone, all sorts of stuff. This one felt extremely thematic for what you're doing, like fit the theme perfectly, and it had more to do than just playing your cards to get some points. You're trying to actually like get in and get out, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was the thing I was going to say. Not only is it super thematic, but it doesn't necessarily suffer from like that issue that I have with Dominion, where there's like no player interaction and everything is very boring, and whatever you're doing on your turn, I don't care. So you could be cheating and I don't care. Like this game sort of solves that in how it does the theming and how it does like just the entire purpose of the game.
Right.
It seems to have much more purpose and substance than a game like Dominion, where it's like, and I play the cobbler and he gets me 2 points and 2 card draw, and I draw this and I play, and it's like it can kind of, and Clank can kind of get to that, but at the same point I feel like Clank isn't so much Dominion because Dominion doesn't necessarily have a big theme for me, but like this, it's like Roy would go on some combos and he's like, and I draw this and I play this, and I'm like, dang, Roy's got like 7 movement and he's got like 28 recruitment. Like,
apparently,
what am I
if
doing
you get
over
cards
here?
that allow you to draw more cards, that's a good thing in deck building
And
games.
there aren't too many of them. I noticed there are some that are very expensive because they also give you victory points as well as card draw, and then there are a couple that do give you like draw 2 cards and stuff like that. So they're a bit few and far between, and some of them that are there are pretty expensive. So they're kind of well balanced, I think.
Another thing I like about this is like the point of the game is you can only carry 1 trophy, or which are like these are big like
treasures,
big treasure items, but there's only 1 of each of them. So like there's ones with different values, and the better ones are deeper in, so they're just like down there taunting you to go grab them. But if someone gets to, like, if you wanted to go for a specific one and someone grabs it before you, like they've got it, like it's gone. So you have to try to
follow, hope they die, or
right. You have to try to beat your opponent out of the whole cavern, or race them down there, grab the stuff, and then run back out, and hope that someone didn't grab the one that was right near the entrance and run out, and have more points while everybody else dies. But yeah, that's Clank, an awesome deck building dungeon crawl.
One more
It sounds
thing.
like a lot of fun.
The stuff that you can buy in the market, it's not necessarily just for points, it also affects gameplay. So like each of the things that are inside of the market can affect the game in some way. So like you can buy a key that lets you go through locked doors, you can buy a backpack that lets you carry 2 of those like big treasures, you can buy a crown and the crown like affects some like really kind of high value cards and gives you more of certain bonuses and stuff. It's really really cool what they do with just all the different stuff in this relatively small game.
It fits the theme, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okie doke.
Rob, your
Sweet.
turn.
I'm going to talk about Codename Pictures, which is exactly like Codenames, but with pictures. It was a lot of fun.
Game of the
I actually like this Codename Pictures more than Codename Dixit. Um, Reason being is the pictures in Codenames Pictures are very simplistic. Uh, Maybe not very simplistic. Like we saw a whale that also had sails on its back. So it could be like a sea ship, but it was also a whale. But at the same time, it didn't have the depth of picture that Dixit art is just beautiful.
Right. And
And
Dixit
it has a lot.
Codenames is not like an actual thing. It's a thing that people make
Yeah,
up. But
yeah. Dixit Codenames is not an actual thing, but I remember when we played Dixit Codenames, I would ask for things, and you could look at the artwork, and depending on what mood you were in, you could go for like 5 or 6 different things. Whereas in Codenames Pictures, it was pretty obvious what people are going for. Like, you didn't have to think too hard uh, about it. I mean, you do and you don't. It's hard because as a spy master, I remember we were playing and Roy was like something 4, and I was like, I don't see it at all. But once I picked it out, I saw it. But on Dixit, you could do like 12 if that was even an option, and try to run into that. But Codenames, obviously, best party game, family game of the year last year. Codenames Pictures. I don't know if it will win this year, just out of spite, since it's since the Mother game won last year. But Codenames Pictures, if you're definitely into party games, it's something that I would pick up.
Yeah.
It's very affordable. It's very easy to play. It's also something that's not threatening, so even non-gamers would like Codename Pictures. But it's a great party game, one that you should have in your arsenal for games. So that's Codename Pictures.
now that we got the light Codenames, Matt gets to do the other side of the coin.
So the next thing we got Codenames Undercover, or the other Codenames variant where you play with Cards Against Humanity cards. So I really like sort of irreverent games that are kind of raunchy. I think would be the most appropriate term. And so I picked it up because it was a Gen Con, and I didn't even look at it or care about it. I was just like, I just want this. And so I got it out, and I was looking through the cards, and I was actually very surprised. It's not. There are a couple of cards that are like straight up like dick, and you're like, okay, cool. But the majority of like the cards that are in there are very straight-laced words, and it forces you to make the associations, and it forces you to make the sort of double entendres and say things that combine these two words by, just very kind of sassy stuff. Like, I don't want to say too much because I know this is a very family-friendly podcast, and I just don't want to be like,
Right.
okay, here we go, dicks. But, it's okay. Roy's going to have fun editing, I guess. It's okay. You can leave that in. It's fine. It's the technical term. No, it's not, but we'll pretend it is.
Okay.
But like, I pulled out the cards literally so I could just like share 5 of them. But like the top 5 are Mixer, Pucker, Straight, Gash, and Fatty.
Yeah.
So nothing like too crazy. So if you're thinking about maybe Codenames, but you're not, or I don't know, you're thinking about Codenames Undercover, but you're not like super sold on a whole lot of the irreverent stuff, you can easily take out those cards. And it's something that you can also pretty easily, I feel like, mix in with regular Codenames. And it might make it a little bit more complicated.
Nice.
Also, there's more cards than regular Codenames in Codenames Undercover.
You
There's
said the stack of cards is just ridiculously huge.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little under double what the normal Codenames has for card count. It's insane, and it also has some in there that you can write in your own if you think you've got some fun words that you want to throw into the hat. But it is what it is. If you like it, you'll like it. If you don't, hey, there's all the other Codenames variants. So
Nice.
So
Yeah,
get over it. Get over
Yeah.
it.
I think it's a Target exclusive too, like their regular Codenames Undercover. So I think they had it at the convention because somebody probably picked it up from somewhere. But I think that's one of the games that were part of that new Target exclusive board games thing. So if you're looking for the game, it's probably at Target.
Or Target.com. That's probably the easiest place to find it for most people.
Yep. Matt again.
Oh, that's right. Doom, the board game, not the old one, the new one. I've never played the old one, but the new one, I kind of went over it a bit in the last podcast. It's a bit like Imperial Assault or Descent in that it is a one verse mini game where there is one guy who controls all of the demons from hell and all the crazy things that you're going to be fighting, and then you and all your compatriots are suited up as soldiers. And the basis of the game is there's just a built map like any of your typical one versus mini games. And you start off and you have an objective. Our objective for the game we played was to collect all of the, I believe, the data caches that were on the map and take them to the teleporter areas based variously around the map. There were little weapons and power-ups and stuff left throughout. The one thing that I liked about the game compared to sort of Imperial Assault is that you actually get to see where the spawn points are on the map, so you can kind of plan a little bit better.
Yeah.
That being said, you don't necessarily know what they're going to spawn. The way spawning works in the game is there are a number of tokens that are stacked on top of each other, and then each token has a color, green, yellow, and red, kind of representing either... They didn't really go over this, but it's either the amount of points the guy can spend to summon things, or it's like the level of things he can summon. So like if you get to the red, it's like, oh boy, we're gonna have so much fun dying. That happened to us. One of our guys like rushed way off with a chainsaw and he was like, I'm gonna kill everything, and we're like, good luck, buddy. And I had some pictures taken of it. He was in a corner surrounded by like the Baron of Hell, and then I don't remember what the name of like the really fat thing is, but he was just not in a good way. He managed to get out, thankfully, but it is very much if you like Doom or you like that sort of, even if you didn't like the games but you like kind of the style where it's like, cool, you're just a regular Marine fighting demons trying to get stuff done, you know. It'll probably be really good for you. The miniatures are banging.
Yeah, the miniatures look great.
A lot of the maps look really cool. They have, I don't know, it was a lot of fun to play. And although I probably wouldn't pick up Imperial Assault, not only because everybody I know has it, but I'm not like that big of a Star Wars fan. Like this is one of these, Doom is one of those things that I might consider picking up.
Rob's face right now.
That's there. I mean, I like Star Wars.
Then don't get mad at me if I spoil everything, because I try to keep my mouth shut. But don't get mad like when Rogue One comes out and I'm like, and then this, and then this, and then like, and then Han Solo died. Han Solo gets killed by Kylo Ren. Don't get mad at me when
spoilers.
I say stuff. So if they haven't seen that, anyway.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
But real quick though, I have a question. Is Doom like Mansions of Madness, where it's like one versus many, or like Imperial Assault?
Yes.
Okay.
So
like
there is one guy who
edition of
controls.
Mansions.
Yeah, he controls all of the bad guys. I asked if they were going to do app integration, since they were talking about app integration for Imperial Assault and Mansions of Madness is app integrated and stuff, and the guy said, I can't say anything, and I went, okie dokie. So it's probably one of those things that right now it would be on the fence for me to buy, because it is one of those $100 big box games, and it does come with a lot of stuff, and it would probably be a lot of fun. I just don't know that I have too many friends that I could get it to the table with, other than you guys, like outside of our like crazy board game circle. But if they had app integration like they're doing with Imperial Assault and all the other stuff, I would probably definitely pick it up, because it does seem like a lot of fun.
Nice.
I think that's the key. I know we're talking about Doom, but like app integration is gonna, like, I picked up Imperial Assault and I was happy to pick it up. I played a couple games with Trevor and stuff in the past, and so I picked it up. and then it's been sitting on my shelf to only think about when a Star Wars movie were to come out.
Yeah.
But now that it's going to have app integration, um, it's got me so much more excited for it.
Oh,
Where
yeah,
I can
yeah.
play by myself, or
It's
I
a
can,
big deal.
or I can play with my other friends, and like we can actually do a campaign together,
Yeah, yeah.
where it's not one person beating up on people. And so
It also
very excited
allows for
the games.
solo play for people who
Yeah.
enjoy that sort of thing too.
And I
So-
don't really like solo games, but I am
Try it
interested.
like against the app. So
I would.
it'd be like
I would.
half video game, half board game.
Well, and it's one of those things too that if you don't mind setting it up, like it's one of those things you could easily bust out on like a rainy Saturday when you don't have anything else to do on your board.
Or just leave it set up.
Yeah. And then you could just play through a scenario and be like, "Oh man, that was pretty cool." And if you got any cool stories, it kind of inspires other people, and then you can easily get those other people to the table and be like, "Hey man,
Let me tell you a really cool
I've been
story.
playing this by myself, and I really need more people to play with me.
I'm alone."
I've been the Jedi, and I failed the mission to get my lightsaber. I really want to start over, so we can try to like fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it was good.
So the next game is a game that I added in, but Rob gets to talk about it. It's Flicking Finches, or Darwin's Flicking Finches.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Flicking Finches. I forgot that we were going to do this. Flicking Finches. Man, you know what? It says it all in the title. You are
Flicking
flicking.
Finches?
Quite literally.
Literally, that's what you're doing. So Darwin is at the Galapagos Islands,
Yep.
Yes.
right?
That's
and
what he did.
is trying to come up with his theories of evolution and all that other kind of stuff. And so he goes to like the craziest island on the planet with the most life and all this stuff. So kind of makes sense. But anyway, you are a finch, and you were trying to impress Darwin, and so you're trying to get noticed. So he'll put you down in his book of like evolution and stuff like that. And what happens is you have your finches, and there's cards that are laid out in front of you, or in front of everybody. So you have your board, which is a map of the Galapagos, let's just say the G Islands, because I'm gonna butcher that. In front of the G Islands, you guys know what I mean.
Galapagos.
And Galapagos, bro, say that 10 times fast.
Galapagos, 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 Galapagos,
Okay.
Galapagos, Galapagos.
You're just not. You're
Podcast content, baby.
break your camera again. You're amazing. Anyway, so they have these cards out, and the cards represent the different type of bird that Darwin is looking for at that time. And so you're trying to take a bird from your nest of birds and flick it towards Darwin to get his attention. If you get a bird close enough to Darwin and you're the closest one to him, you can caw. And if you caw at him, or if you chirp at him, he will take you and you get that card. The card has 3 different point ratings. There's a 6-point, a 3-point, and a 1-point rating on the card. I am like crazy happy that I'm remembering all this details.
Awesome.
And you're trying to get the highest points at the end of the game, which, like any other game, you're trying to get victory points. I remember I got like easily double more cards than everybody else, but none of my cards like matched the perfect specimen. And like Roy with 3 cards won the game because he got like 18 points off of 3. But anyway, I could COD more than anybody else. It is a dexterity game that is coming out by
Meriday Games.
Meriday Games, which our friend Doug Bass is a part of Meriday Games, and that was his meetup that we talked about when we did our pre-Gen Con show. Had a blast. They had a couple of other games there, but we played the Caca game, the Flicking Finches game.
The part I love about this is like if you accidentally like touch or nudge Darwin, like you can't do the action.
No, he leaves.
He's
like,
moves
no, yeah.
to a different location. So
Yeah.
like I would be on my last action because like I like messed up and couldn't flick far enough. And there's no way I could take an action for him to actually notice me to do the caca.
So you like
whatever
run
action.
into him.
So I would literally flick my bird as hard as I could into the Darwin pond and go flying. But I mean, it's a lot of fun just trying to like get in the radius and get the right birds. Because I mean, that's what I focused on was like looking at the points cards, being like, okay, this is the exact kind of bird he wants. So I'd use that bird and try to flick it in there. And I don't know if this is just for the prototype, but I think they said they're going to have it for the Kickstarter too. Is like they had like a little nest with all the little bird tokens in it. So it was pretty cute and pretty awesome.
I like the nest. I hope that they do include it in the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It was a different touch. It just added that detail to the game because you got a nest of birds. So I
Super
like that.
light dexterity game, a lot of fun. Look at that.
Very light, very simple. It's 3 rounds.
Yeah,
For
coming up on Kickstarter soon.
for somebody who didn't play the game, I will say that I think it is very interesting because it sounds like you're just trying to date Darwin as a bird.
Basically,
Like every
exactly the game.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, cool. You're just trying to get up and be like, hey, baby. how
That's
you
exactly
doing?
it. And if
That's
you're
it.
the
You're like,
closest one
hey,
to
it's
say,
such
hey,
an
babe,
these
awesome
feathers, I don't
concept.
got striped feathers. I got like solid feathers. You don't like those striped
Ooh,
birds
girl,
right
you
now.
looking so good.
yeah.
Then once he gets the one bird, and
Oh,
he's like,
man.
"Oh well, I don't want you anymore. You're no good. So I want this bird instead."
Typical American relationships.
Anyway, good times. But
That's
yeah,
fun.
that's flicking finches.
Yeah.
So next, let's talk about the best game of the con. Let's
Yes.
talk about the #1 game. I'm not saying it's the new Rhino Hero. I'm just saying it's
It's adjacent.
it's adjacent. Yes, I like that. Go cuckoo. Go cuckoo. In fact, my daughter right now is sleeping with 9 of these eggs in her bed with her in a little nest because
That's
she
awesome.
absolutely loves these eggs. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this is like Rhino here. It's making me paranoid because I'm like, don't lose an egg. I love this game. I love this game. Don't lose an egg. So Go Cuckoo is a Haba game, which Haba so phenomenal. Love that company. You are building a nest for Mr. Cuckoo. What's the face?
Nope. Well, I will get to it later. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. You keep talking about
So-
the best game ever.
So you are building a nest for Mr. Cuckoo or Cuckoo the bird. And what you do is you have this nice metal tin can, which actually really great production. Even the sticks and the eggs and everything like that, really nice production quality.
Pretty
You
rigid.
take yeah, and there's tough. There's because
We kinda
I'm playing with my
tried-
little daughter. We tried to break it, and it did not break.
I
Anyway,
mean, we didn't try like real hard, but
no, but we
hard
tried.
enough that it should have broken.
So you are building a nest. What happens is you have in the game you have all of these sticks. You have a bunch of eggs, and then you have the metal bucket or the metal cylinder, and then you also have Mr. Cuckoo or Mrs. Cuckoo, whoever you're playing with. The different sticks all have colors on the ends of them. One may have green, one may have red, one may have blue, one may have yellow. On one side it may be green, but on the other side it may be red. What you're trying to do is you're trying to pull a stick and match both ends of the same color. So if you pull a green stick and the bottom part of the stick is yellow, you then next have to pull a yellow stick. And then when you pull a yellow stick, let's say the bottom of that stick is blue, right? Then you pull a blue stick. Let's just say you get lucky and both ends of the blue stick are blue. Then, and this is not so fun at the beginning because it's really hard, but then you have to take those sticks that you drew out of the can and you have to lay them in between all the other sticks that are sticking up out of this can. And you have to take one of your eggs and place it on top of that because you were starting to build your nest. If you drop a stick, your turn immediately ends. You put the other sticks back in the bucket. If you drop an egg into the nest while it's your turn, you take an egg from the person with the most eggs. If there's a tie, you choose whoever you want. If an egg rolls out and falls onto the ground during your turn, you just take that egg, whatever egg fell out, and you get to keep going. The point of the game is to be the very first person who has placed all of their eggs in the nest. Your eggs don't have to make it to the end because Matt could knock out one of my eggs, Roy could knock out one of my eggs, but you have to place all of your eggs in the nest at the end, and then you have to place Mr. Cuckoo on top of the nest at the very end of the game. And he's a heavy little piece. Mr. Cuckoo Haba, you were like little deviants. Just like the freaking Iron Rhino Hero. Little Rhino Hero is not light either. So you got like this really wobbly, shady nest that would not pass a home inspection at all to save its life. And then you're trying to put this really fat bird on top of it. I had so much fun with this game. This game is my game of the con over Blood Rage, over everything else. We played this game one night till after 3 o'clock in the morning, and then after that we watched stupid YouTube videos because there was no other game we could play to top it. But so much fun. It's only $20. We got it for $20. Matt even bought a copy of the game.
Yeah.
We got it for $20 at Gen Con, and I believe that sticker price I cannot tell you enough how much this game is worth it. It's a fun party game. It's a fun family game. It's a fun game night out with your friends. Like I would bring this to Roy's house just for us to play. It is such a blast. The can is really thick. It's beautiful artwork. The sticks are really sturdy. We built a nest so hardcore one time that we removed all the other sticks from the game and our nest stayed up. It should not have done that. And then I pressed down with my hand on top of the nest to see how strong it was. And like my knuckles were white knuckling and it still stayed up. That's how we know like
and
the components
none of the
strong.
sticks broke either. Like Rob got to the point where I was like, dude, if you keep doing this,
Yeah,
you were going to break it. And he was like, nah.
And but we had so much fun. I've got another game that's kind of up there for me for top games of Gen Con, but I'll get into that. But Go Cuckoo.
One of the best things of the game is like how it looks like when it's all done. You got all these
so beautiful.
crazy like sticks hanging out all over the place. The thing about Rhino Hero is it gets real pretty when like you're building it and everything, but then it just all falls and it's crumbled. This game, when the game ends, it's like this giant crazy like configuration of a nest and with this bird on top, and it's just like picture perfect.
Looks like a modern art piece.
People do some crazy nest building. Like we were playing at the Secret Cabal meetup, and there was this one guy. I was watching you guys play, which the way you learned it all wrong.
Yeah.
But I was watching this one guy play, and he was putting his twigs on like Matt on the very edges of the pieces. So the person's
I think
next
somebody
turn,
showed me a picture.
they're gonna knock over that piece of wood. He was doing some shady stuff, and I loved it because I was like, "That is so terrible. You're being so mean." Because if somebody knocks over a piece of wood, their turn immediately ends. And so some of the stuff, like one thing I did is you try to put your sticks down as far as you can to the bottom of the can as possible to have that support. And you have all the sticks that are still sticking up out of the can. I was putting my sticks at the very top. Like making like little bridges across the top of the nest so it would get in other people's ways while they were trying to put their eggs down and stuff like that. We had a blast. Highly recommend this game. Haba, I bought a bunch of their games at the con this year. My family, we've already played all of them. Love them all. But Go Cuckoo, it is the new Rhino Hero. You will hear me talk about this.
Yeah, one of you guys has to bring it to the next game night because I feel like my play was tainted by poor rules introduction. So you guys got to show me like how
it's
awesome
so much fun, man.
I think
my group.
My favorite part, not only playing it is like the best part, but like my second favorite part is after we got done playing it at that 3:00 night, I went by the Haba booth the next day to buy my copy, and there were some guys who were playing it there at the Haba booth. And I was like, dude, we stayed up like super late and played this, and they just looked at me and they were like, this game is like king of drinking games. I can already tell you right now, this game is going to be so good at like a party. And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So much fun.
I don't know. So it truly is a Haba game, in that it fits all age ranges from like 5 to 99 or whatever it is that they say on the box.
No, this one goes down to 4-year-olds.
Oh.
Yeah, even though my daughter's 3, she likes the eggs. And what's so funny is I play with my daughter, and she drops eggs in the nest on purpose because she wants to collect mine and my wife's eggs. So she's like, "Oh, okay, I dropped that. Give me your egg." And it's like, "No, baby, you're trying to get rid of the eggs." No, Daddy. I'm the mama bird. I got to protect the eggs. Give me your egg. So it's like, oh,
so matronly.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I mean, we play it with her. You play with your children to the rules of how they want to play. It's not worth fighting over or anything like that. But this is that one game, though. I did get a little serious with her. Like, Briley, listen, we're not going to break Daddy's game. This game is very important to Daddy. So I already told my wife, I was like, look, if she loses the game, I'm going to order a brand new copy. I don't care. It's only $20. Like,
yeah,
it's done.
And then you just give her that one, and you're like, you are the mama bird. Take care of this.
That's right. And the crazy thing is, she'll make a nest. She'll actually sit on the nest herself, and it won't break. She'll do it.
Haba quality.
Nice.
Oh, man.
Go Cuckoo from Haba.
So great.
Yeah.
This next game is insane. Like, literally insane. It is Happy Salmon. I know this game didn't come out at Gen Con, but the first time I had played it was at Gen Con this year during the Secret Cabal meetup. Happy Salmon is a real-time game where each player has a deck of cards that they're flipping the top card off of. And the top card will give you instructions, and you're trying to match up with another player to be able to complete that card and go to the next card. If your deck completely runs out, you win the game. oh, it doesn't seem too crazy. But basically, to match up, you have to do different activities. So you'll flip over a card and you'll say fist bump, and you have to like find another player who wants to fist bump. And you're hoping that someone has another fist bump card. So you're basically just yelling at all the other players, fist bump, fist bump, fist bump, trying to find someone. And when someone finally fist bumps you, you get to flip to your next card, which will say high five. And so you got to find somebody to high five. You flip to your next card and it says switch. So then you have to find another player who has a switch card and switch places with them. So now you're playing off of their deck, and their deck could be less far along or further along. So you could have made the game harder on yourself or easier on yourself by switching with that specific person. Then there's ones that actually say Happy Salmon, which is this weird move where you like slap each other's arms. This game is complete insanity, like real time, playing as fast as you can, just people yelling all these crazy things, Happy Salmon, high fives and switches and all that stuff. And when you run out of the deck, you're like, oh, I won. And the game doesn't matter just because the hilarity that ensues while you're playing the game. If you're looking for a game that's just crazy and insane, that game is Happy Salmon. And I think it scared away all of my co-hosts. They all ran away. But yeah, Happy Salmon. Check that game out if you're looking for a real-time game. I'll go ahead into the next game, which is the Iron Throne. This is a game from Fantasy Flight. In the Game of Thrones universe, basically everybody's going to be playing a different house, and it's a re-theming or re-implementing of the Iron Throne or the Cosmic Encounter game. So basically each person is a different house, and you're going to be different characters from their houses, and those characters kind of correspond to like the aliens from Cosmic Encounter. So you're trying to gain basically power on other people's houses by winning different challenges. It still has the same thing as Cosmic Encounter, where you have an encounter with like a random other house, and you're trying to play different cards to do combat. You can try to negotiate with your other players. I think they're called like truces or something like that, where you're trying to like talk into a deal. Then players can backstab if one person plays like a truce card and the other person plays like an attack card. There's also cards that correspond to like each different character, that if you have that character in combat, it'll trigger like different special abilities. It can trigger them at like different times. If someone breaks a truce, then you can steal, like you can kidnap one of their characters and use it for different mechanics later on in the game. You have like their captured characters and stuff like that. It looks very similar overall to Cosmic Encounter, but it has like slight variations that I feel are going to make the game very different. Like the characters all have their own power on them, and they can gain power back throughout the game. So you can have like a specific character that gets really powerful that you can send out on the attacks and stuff like that. And the different characters are going to have like different abilities. It looks very interesting. I feel like Game of Thrones definitely fits the Cosmic Encounter like universe as far as like the theme of the game, because it's all about backstabbing and tricking your opponent into doing different things. Have either of
It's
you
all
guys,
about that base.
Have either of you guys seen the Iron Throne game, and what is your thoughts on it? I know you were looking at it, Rob.
So yes, I have seen it and I want it. Cosmic Encounter seems really cool. I like the theme better. I mean, I like sci-fi stuff, don't get me wrong, but I like the theme better of the Iron Throne, and I think I could bring more new players or new gamers to play the Iron Throne rather than Cosmic Encounter, because so many people today know, if you mention Game of Thrones, whether they watch it or not, because I really don't watch it. I just watch the YouTube highlights of like the dragon eating people and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I could get more people to play it, and I like the idea of like diplomacy and treachery and backstabbing, because we do that on games that aren't even meant. We do that in Go Cuckoo. I mean, and so it's like a game that's just like already set and made for us. So yeah.
I think the setup time on this is going to be a lot easier too, because I have Cosmic Encounter with like tons of expansions and stuff. So it's like, okay, let me deal out 2 aliens to everybody, and then I have to get the specific flare cards that match those aliens, and I gotta shuffle those into the deck. And okay, you chose this one, you chose that one, and with this one, the decks are separate for each house, so each house has their own deck. So you're just like, okay, here's your house characters, here's your deck. You get to choose which of your leaders you want out of that house, and you'll have like, I think, like 6 different characters, and you'll put the character that's your leader as your leader, and then the rest of them are like your guys out there that are going to go.
How many people can play the Iron Throne one?
I'm not sure. The base game is probably 5 players. That's what Cosmic Encounter
So
was
it's
for
like
5 players, but I'm not
it's
sure.
Stark, Baratheon, Lannister, Greyjoy.
No, there's no Greyjoy. There is Tyrell though.
So is there also Martell?
Um,
Or is there the Stannis Baratheon one where it's got like the horse or
yeah,
the steed in the heart?
It's Baratheons, Starks, Lannisters, Targaryens, and Tyrells.
Okay, Targaryens. Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely got Daenerys and all that crazy stuff going on too. So.
What'd you call her? Daenerys.
Dany.
Yeah.
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 As she's known around this area. Outside
Dany.
of...
Good times. But
For
yeah, that
those
is
that saw me
Iron Throne.
real
If
quick.
you're interested in Cosmic Encounter with a Game of Thrones slant on it, check that one out. Rob, I know you really want to talk about this next one.
I am super crazy about this next one, but real quick, I left to go get the eggs from underneath my daughter who was sleeping on them. So that's what I was
Did any
doing.
of them hatch?
That would be a different game. No, they did not.
Surprise.
Okay, I love Goku. I love Goku. It's tied for this game. The next game I'm going to talk about is Junk Art. I absolutely love Junk Art. I played the demo with Matt at the Gen Con. Sorry, I'm thinking about the game and what my brother did to me rather than thinking about what I'm supposed to be talking about. So I played the demo at the Gen Con at the Pretzel Games booth. We played a certain scenario, and the scenario that we played was called Montreal. And what's great about the game is the game comes with 12 different scenarios. The scenarios, like for example, this one is Philadelphia, and then here are the rules for Philadelphia. So it's very simple. You have 2 to 3 paragraphs to explain how do you play that scenario. Junk Art is a game where more or less you have all these weird colored shaped blocks. Now I believe there's 3 different colors or 4 different colors. There's an orange, there's a green, there's a blue, there's a gray. Each color is going to have the same amount of blocks and the same color or the same types of blocks. They're all just going to have different colors, right? There's going to be 4 gray. There's going to be 4 balls, 4 rectangles, 4 spheres, 4 cones, 4 whatever. We played Montreal at Gen Con. In Montreal, the gameplay is everybody gets dealt 3 cards. You're going to pass a card to the person to your left. That person to your left, everyone starts off with like a little black case. That's what you're building on top of. That person to your left has got to build that card that you're passing to them. So it sounds like fun, right? Like, oh man, Matt, I'm going to screw you over. Here's this crazy card. I'm going to give you this card. You got to build this card. You're going to do that 3 times. And as you give somebody a card, you get to draw another card. Here's the kicker, kids. Here's where it gets fun. Then you move to the left. And you have to take over that spot of all the craziness that you just gave that person, hoping to God that they were able to build it sound enough that when it's your turn, you don't knock it over. So it's like, I want to screw you, but I don't want to screw you because I really need a strong foundation for when I go over there.
That's
and
awesome.
so you find yourself screwing people over or hurting people over, like when you're down to the last couple people. So we played this at Gen Con, had a blast at Gen Con. I will say Pretzel Games has got probably some of the coolest demo people there. The lady that was playing with us, she was really hype. We had a lot of people watching us. Like, we had a great time. I brought this game home to my family, and how ruthless my family is. It was so much fun. So my brother-in-law, I love him to death. He doesn't listen to this podcast, so I can say this. He's a builder. That's about all that he is he's a builder. Like, I try to talk business or other stuff with him, and he's a builder. So we talk about building stuff. This game was made for my brother-in-law. He killed us. All the different things, because he's a builder and he does a lot of stuff with his hands. All the different ideas and ways he was able to add stuff together. Me and my wife and my other brother, we were playing. Man, first of all, my older brother, Zeb, love him to death. He was trying so hard to be a jerk to everybody, and he would always be the first one out. And then he would like accidentally bump the table and do like a lot of crazy crap. We just had so much fun. And my wife got in the game. We played a couple games, just the guys, and then my wife got into the game. And so then she started to be conniving, and then people were complaining, well, I don't want to be after him. No, you be after him. And so like after each game, we would change our rotation of like who was going to be passing his cards and stuff like
That's
that.
awesome.
Junk Art, for like a serious dexterity game, is by far my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
It's by far so much fun. Now, I got spoiled at Gen Con because at Gen Con you play with the big versions of the game, kind of like Rhino here, where you play with the
Uh-huh.
big Rhino. Gen Con you play with the big pieces, and I get why they do that. So as thousands of people are walking by, you can see the pieces that come up.
Mm.
If you were to see any pictures for the pictures at Junk Art at Gen Con,
Yeah,
the
we have a
actual
lot on our
pieces,
Instagram, so make sure to
the
check those
actual
out.
pieces are about a third the size. So they're smaller. They're the same pieces. They're just smaller. The smaller makes it harder though because they don't weigh as much. And so like if you bump a table, it really affects things. And you sometimes you need that weight distribution. Because I remember building a piece that I had to put all the way over here because it needed to counterbalance this piece all the way over here. Oh, and after somebody puts down a piece, you can't take your hand to then pick up that piece and replace it. If you want to move that piece, you have to use the piece that's in your hand that you're trying to set to move the other pieces. And so it was funny trying to watch us trying to move things around and play the game, and we enjoyed it. In fact, my brother was saying, when are we going to play Junk Card again? In my family, we only played card games, and
Right.
so I got them into a game that they actually really liked and they want to play more of. And so Junk Art, I highly recommend. I'm excited to play all these other different scenarios. All the scenarios are based off of cities. There's 12 individual scenarios to play. I only played Montreal. I'll play other scenarios, but I really like the Montreal scenario because you're you're trying to help other people, but you're not trying to help other people. And the fact that you move and stuff, it's just such a fun game. And the components, it's real wood. It's gonna be an expensive game. It's $70, but it comes with a real wood case. You come with real wood pieces. It's high quality components. So you're getting what you're paying for, and I believe the game will last for a long time. It's also the same company that made Flick 'em Up, which I haven't really played Flick 'em Up since last year Gen Con, but it makes me want to bring it back out.
Right.
But that's junk art. I would say for like not children's game, even though Go Cuckoo is not a kids game, but it is a kids game. But like for gamers, junk art is Go Cuckoo is a better deal because it's only worth $20. Junk art, I think overall is a better game because of the different scenarios that it offers.
Absolutely.
But
I was going to say,
both-
the amount of hype that you've exuded has entirely been for one of the 12 different rule
Yeah.
sets that you can
Yeah,
play
yeah.
with. Like, it's insane just the amount of replayability just because of what they had. Like, that was the one game at Gen Con that I went back and demoed like 3 times. I was just like,
Yeah.
hey, is there room? Or,
That's
like,
awesome.
you would just be walking by and somebody was like, hey, we got another. I'm like, I'm banging. Step right up.
I mean, my family
know,
and I, we
it just-
probably played
so
Montreal
good.
close to 10 times. And then the times that we played it at Gen Con, that's the only version I played. It's been over 10 times now, and that's the only
They-
version I still want to play. So great.
They demoed another one that I think was called Paris, where it's entirely cooperative. So everybody at the table is just trying to build this hulking mass
Yeah.
that doesn't fall down with like
That's
all the
awesome.
pieces, and it's bananas. Like the whole game is just crazy. So it's like there's something there for everybody. It's really good.
There is Paris, and yeah, everyone builds off of one tower together, one piece together.
Yeah.
So this
So
is a
many
game I'll
games I
have to
need to
bring
play.
to.
The one
I will bring it to game night.
Yes.
The one I was watching with Paris, it starts off on a little cube, and that one I think is like it's like 2x2. It's like it's not very big, but the one that they had built somehow managed to look like an RV and expand out to be about 8 inches wide on one side, and like I don't know, they
On
had
top
set
of the
it
little
up.
brick.
Yeah, it was amazing, and I was just like, oh, what's happening? Like,
But
it
how
was
do you
so
do it? You
good.
got to have the right weight distribution and everything.
I don't know if
so
they started off with like a flat piece and they were like, this goes here, and then they were just like, let's build off the flat piece. I don't know, but it's just bananas. Like
So
the
much
game
fun.
is so good.
Awesome. That was Junk Art by Pretzel Games. Your turn, Matt.
Me and Rob demoed our game the last Friday.
I don't know
It's
why
not
you
our
say
game.
that.
I think our
No, it's
game's a
not.
little bit.
Well, we'll get
Different.
into that. So we played the last Friday, which for those of you who don't know, it's a game that's essentially a hidden movement game, very much in the same vein as
Letters from Whitechapel?
Letters from Whitechapel. The other one is eluding me. I don't know. Scotland Yard. That's it. So it's very much like that. You've got little circles with numbers on it, and you've got an invisible dude, and he's running around. Although this is reversed, the invisible dude is trying to catch you. not the other way. You're not trying to catch him. You're trying to run from him because if he ever comes into contact with you, you kind of get murdered, like just straight up. Um, so me and Rob demoed it. The way the game plays is there are, I think, 5 different chapters that you can play through, or that you play through. There are 15 turns in each chapter, and there is a goal in each chapter to do the different things. It is very much a hidden movement game, so there's one person versus everybody else at the table. That being said, the first round, there are little tokens that are out on the board that you have 15 turns to go around. You find the token. It typically is either something that can help you move or kind of detect where the slasher, for lack of a better term, is. So it's really interesting. But if you get a key, you can hold on to that key, and then the ultimate goal of the first round is to go take this key and then go unlock a cabin and then get in the cabin. And once you're in the cabin, you're safe. But at the end of 15 turns, if you're not in a cabin, you die immediately. And then at the start of the next chapter, everybody who's dead respawns at a van, like in the bottom corner of the map. Each player starts out with 3 different characters that they can choose to use. These characters kind of have different abilities and start with different power-ups. That's the only overview I can give for the game. Is that was the only thing that was told to us. I think the next chapter, what it is everybody is chasing after the murderer. In chapter 2, so it's more like an actual hidden world game where you're trying to chase him down and find him, and I don't know, accuse him of his crimes or whatever. Rob,
Hey,
what did you think? Because I've got some thoughts. I just
Okay.
want to know.
I'm glad I bought it for nostalgia reasons. I think I'll probably play it maybe a handful of times. The more I think about it after playing the demo, it's literally letters from Whitechapel with some new components. I think Spectre Ops is a better game. I'd rather play Spectre Ops 100 times over, especially with the new app coming out. I do like the idea of the different characters having their abilities. Like I was Susie or something. And I could listen, which could like point me out. And so I do like how each character has individual abilities. And I also like how each color, because I was like the red character, comes with 3 different characters. So if you die, you get to come back. It also makes sense that you come back at the van, because that's typically what happens. A couple people die, and then like the teenagers all of a sudden become grown people with deep voices, and they try to fight back. All of them die but one.
The camp
usually
counselor
like the
Hello.
weakest girl comes back to find her inner lioness and comes back and kills the bad guy. It's cute. I really like the board.
Oh yeah, the
I like
board
the
is-
art of the board. I wish they would have done a little bit more with the meeples. I understand why they went generic meeples, especially since each color had multiple male or female characters. And so you don't want to just do like a gender-based meeple, but I don't know. I feel like the meeples could have been better. At least the killer meeple. The killer meeple is just a black meeple. There's nothing special about him or anything like that. And so I was kind of...
Doesn't even have a knife? Like
Nothing. He's like a black...
That'd be pretty cool, just a meeple with a knife on the
Right?
side.
exactly what it should have been. Should
You
been
could
just
have done
meeple
that
with a
the
knife.
game. I also like the idea that you can like destroy the cabins.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so that was one of the things. Matt and I, we had an idea where like you could go in the cabin and hide in the cabin. You know, not saying like the cabin is safe zone, because it's not. Have you ever seen like a Friday the 13th movie?
Yeah.
He gets you anywhere. He gets you anywhere. But so like they had some cool ideas. Again, it's fun. It is a fun hidden movement game. We were being silly when doing the demo, and we brought a lot of attention to ourselves. Like I was making, not that I was making fun of like the guy who's running the demo, but like, you know, give him a hard time, just being goofy like we usually are.
Yeah, yeah.
Rob's just trying to RP his character.
I totally am. Like I made this backstory. Matt and I were lovers as we're trying to find a cabin together and stuff.
That's awesome.
Both women.
Yeah, both.
And,
Yeah, well,
and
typically those
I got
bees-
murdered fast.
Oh, bro, you got murdered
Like,
fast
he
first.
came after me hard. I was like, okay.
And like
It's
there was a couple guys that were demoing with us, and they were like quiet and serious, and so of course they lived. But Matt and I, who were like loud in the party, he just killed us. So anyway,
Like, get away from my demo table.
it was fun. I'd say on a scale of like 1 to 10, I'd give it maybe a 6.
that's
with
about what I was thinking. Like
with
5.
with maybe Spectre Ops is at 9.5. If not, Spectre Ops at a full 10. Spectre Ops will be a full 10 when
I
the
have it
app
as a full
comes
time on
out.
Board Game Geek.
It is for me, but I'm saying when the app comes out, I don't think there'll be anything that compares to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like the idea of having like a murder mystery like slasher movie game. Like I've got a bunch of space games and other games. I don't have any like slasher movie games.
Do you think it might have hurt it even a little bit too that we played Spectre Ops like the day or like a couple days before you played this game also?
For me, no.
Not yet. For me, no either. Because Spectre Ops is entirely better had I recently played it or not recently played
Right.
it. I like the movement. I like the components better. I just like everything overall. The board on Spectre Ops is phenomenal. The only
Yeah, yeah.
problem that I have with Spectre Ops is there's too much glare in the board, and that's why I'm excited for the app because you can't really see stuff if you're trying to look around, as the agent. But
Yeah.
good game. I don't think I would fight over it as much next year. Like if
Right.
knowing what I know now, but still, it was Gen Con. I was excited. I wanted to get the game. I'm happy I got the game. I will play it. I will bring it to game night so we can because there
Yeah,
were
I do-
rules.
I don't wanna
There
play
are
a
rules that
full-
we didn't play with. Like
Yeah.
there's more things the killer could do, and there was things that happened that we didn't get to play with because you're doing a 1-round demo.
Yeah. I do want to play a full game to kind of give you like a better idea of what the game is, but my impression thus far has been very lackluster. Like there are a lot of things, like it even strips down a lot of the stuff that you can do in Letters from Whitechapel, like the whole Letters from Whitechapel thing where you land on a thing and then you say, "Hey, are you at any of these adjacent spaces?" That is something that becomes a power up that is like a one-time use if you start with it. But you don't always start with it. Sometimes you have to find it. And then there are all this different stuff. So it really takes the power away from you. And it's not
There's no real deduction.
right. It's more just like the other thing I should say
There
is
is
that
deduction, but it's limited.
yeah.
Because you don't see the guy for every 5 rounds or 5 turns or something like that.
It's every 5 turns or 3.
3 or
It's
5 turns,
Yeah.
the guy pops out and you get an idea of
And
where
he
he
tells
was.
you where he was. It's every
3
5
turns.
turns he tells you where he was 3 turns ago.
Yeah.
So, but I think the third turn he tells you where he started, something like that. I don't.
Something like yeah.
I don't remember it exactly. So you kind of get the idea of where he's going, but at the same point you're 3 turns behind. So that's how they try to offset the whole. Oh, okay, you don't have any information. You're just trying to run. So I would be interested to see how they do that in subsequent chapters. But I just felt like it was one of those things where. It's not necessarily that they took the power away to make it thematic. They took the power away so that it's harder to figure stuff out.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Especially if the killer kills a bunch of people, because the next round it becomes the campers who are trying to kill the killer.
Yeah.
Well, all the campers start in a corner, and so like if you're the killer, just race to the opposite corner. So they
and
have
just
to
wait
spend,
it out.
Yeah, and just wait it out. Now I haven't done the math. They could probably get there if they all go like, following each other and like hardcore. Everyone works together, but because you can only move a couple spaces. That's it. You're not really moving a lot.
You can move 2, and if you have the sprint action, you can move 3.
No, 4. You can double.
That's a character special ability.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
it's really weird. I think it's.
we need to
nothing.
play a full game before we give like a full review.
Yeah.
We played a
But-
one-time demo with.
Yeah. I mean, my hype level going into it was not exactly met, so I will just leave it at that.
Gotcha.
But we'll get back to you guys whenever we play a full game and then rip it apart or praise it whenever that happens. So, you know.
Awesome. Well, this next game is a game of Victorian Gothic horror, and it's a real-time game called London Dread. This is by Grey Fox Games. It's
Boo! Gray Fox Games. Boo!
whatever. Grey Fox Games is
Boo.
awesome.
No, Gray Fox Games is great. We love Josh.
Josh is
I'm
the
just
best.
saying that for Josh.
But yeah, London Dread is a real-time game where you're basically taking actions. You're programming your actions for the turn, but you're doing it cooperatively. So it's a cooperative real-time game where there's basically this giant puzzle set in front of you. You're trying to figure out all the plot points on the board and then complete enough of those and enough of the dread cards on the board to be able to successfully win the end game. And there's tons of different scenarios in this game. I think the one that they were demoing at Gen Con was like you're getting together to try to like do this weird ritual thing, and you're trying to figure out why this dread's going on. So you're having to explore like the city and all these different areas and figure out clues and all these different plot points and stuff. The way it works is you have a north, a south, a east, and a west, and then you have numbers for each card in that section. So on your board, you have to basically be like, okay, well, I'm moving this direction. I'm moving to the west, and I'm going to search this card, or I'm going to work on this card right here, which is like card number 2. Once the game, like the timer starts, you're allowed to like flip over as many cards, and then you have to work as a team to program your actions. Each character has like different skills that they're good at, which are all represented by like different animals, which is kind of interesting. I forget what all the basic words they mean, but there's like dove, which is good for like grace or something like that. And then you've got like a snake and like a crane and like all these different things. But you're trying to match the symbols on your character with the symbols on the different like, the different dread like cards to try to complete them, because if you don't complete the dread cards, it's going to add dread to your total at the end of the game, which makes the end game harder. So you're trying to work together to complete these. Different ones will be different difficulty, and if you have the number of icons on your character and on the right card there, then you'll be able to complete it. Then when you go to the plot ones, it makes it a little bit more difficult, because then you're like rolling dice to try to complete it, and the more symbols you have, the more dice you can have. So you're working as a team to try to lay out the movements, like correspond to, okay, there's a plot here, we really need to go there together to be able to complete this properly. Let's both make sure we meet there at 3 o'clock, because I'm going to be here at 1 o'clock and there at 2 o'clock. And so it's like you're trying to figure out how to pre-program the entire game in 12 minutes, and then play all of that out. The more of these dread cards and plot cards you complete, well, you have to complete all the plot cards, but after you complete all the dread cards, then they all go into a pile, which basically becomes resources to help you in the end game. And all of those that you don't complete that are out on the board become dread. And the more dread you have, the more successes you need to complete the end game. Then you go to like an end game thing, which can give you more dice, and you're using the cards that you earned during the like real-time phase or during the resolution from completing all these dread cards to get more dice. And the further you can get in that, the more dice you can get for each character. And then basically you see how many successes you need. As a group, you roll all the dice you have, and if you get enough successes, you win the game, and that's it. The entire game is leading up to this giant like dice pool that you roll to try to get enough successes to win the game. But of course, the better you do during the real-time puzzle part of the game, the more chances you're going to have successes at the end game. It looks like highly stressful, super crazy. I love like, because you can get like certain plot cards will give you like items, certain different cards will give you like different abilities and things you can use. So there's all sorts of things you're trying to figure out how to work together to make things happen. And get it going. And it's also very like thematic and storytelling as it goes along. Like it has a plot for the whole thing and a story. And they've actually got like an app that's coming out with the game that actually like reads a like prologue story for like each scenario and has the timer in the app too. It's just a 12-minute timer, so you don't need the app to play the game, but it's like a little companion thing you can get to. Definitely great artwork, great theme, definitely very stressful. So if you're looking for a game that has that sort of like XCOM-y feel, that's like, oh my gosh, we gotta work together to try to get these things done, but you want one that's like in a gothic Victorian horror style like setting where you're investigators trying to figure things out with these like interesting pasts and things like that, because there's cards in your deck that can come up that are like negative things too, so that can kind of throw a wrench in your plans, like, oh man, your guys are drunk or something, and it makes you have negatives on this sort of check thing. So it's very thematic. So check out London Dread. You got this game, Rob. Are you excited to try it out?
Yes, I am. I'm excited to play it. I do like Gray Fox games prior to that crazy man who took over the microphone from me earlier. And I also like real time games.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't played a lot of them, but the ones that I have played, I have enjoyed. And so I'm excited to give this to go. I'm also a fan of the artwork. It's that crazy cool. It kind of reminds me of, I know it's not the same artwork at all, but it gives me just in the back of my mind an itch for the grizzled artwork,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like old cartoonish. Not that old French cartoonish, but still,
Just
I like the
pretty
artwork.
gritty looking.
Yeah, gritty, European, dark. Like terrible circumstances. So I'm excited to play it.
I feel like it's a game that you have to like get a skill to be able to like you have to like play it multiple times to like get better at the game to win. Because it's like all real time and you're working together. So it's like, okay, we're going to play the first time, we're going to do terribly. Because like it's real time, we got to try to figure these things out. But then once you kind of like
Well, let me ask
understand
you:
what you
Are
need
you
to do,
okay with that, Roy? Because typically, Roy changes colors when he loses.
No, I mean, it looks like it's going to stress me out. I'm willing to tuck her down and like get good at this game. But I
You
almost
do that. You would do that for us.
I would do that for you. I almost wish like we had like a Josh or somebody like with us to like help us out and be like that strong leader as we're going through. It also comes with like tokens and stuff you can put out on the different thing and be like, okay, well we've completed this one. Like during the real time, you can be like, okay, we're gonna complete this one. This should be good. We're gonna go over here and complete this one and do this. There's also like extra things you can do where it's like, oh crap. I thought I could complete that, but I can't. Well, I guess I can discard these things to make me actually be able to complete it, but then you have less resources later in the game. So it's all this management of trying to figure out how to solve the puzzle and make it out. That is London Dread by Gray Fox Games.
Da 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 da.
Matt, you get to talk about this one?
Oh. I was kind of hoping we were going to skip it, but that's okay.
No, we're talking about it. I don't care.
So the next game up, it's called Moonquake Escape. Our friend Trevor brought it over for game night last week. It is. I'm not going to talk too much about it. It is. It's an okay game. I will put it to you that way. The basic premise of the game is there is this board that has 3 rotating layers and then a base layer, and then you start off as a particular alien. It doesn't really matter. The artwork in it, really cool. Really cool artwork. But the ultimate goal is to get to the very top, the top tier of the board, in which there's a rocket ship, and then if you have an energy and you're at the rocket ship, you can take off and you win. So the ultimate goal is, I guess the moon is collapsing. There's a big moonquake, and you were trying to be the only one to survive because friendship is dead.
And technically, you're all supposed to be like alien fugitives that have escaped, and you're trying to get to the
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the game plays okay, I think. It's not terrible. You have a couple of different cards. You have some equipment cards that can prevent certain things from happening, and then you have other cards which either affect the board or affect people. There are a bunch of different actions that you can take for the cost of a certain amount of energy, and energy is pretty much how you do things. You lay all of the cards that aren't your equipment out in front of you face down. You have some equipment that can protect cards and stuff like that. But one of your cards is your alien. And if one of the other people you're playing against decides to shoot one of your cards, they have to flip it over. And so it can be a card that nothing happens, or it can be a card that makes the board spin around, because that is something it does. It like fully moves, which is really neat and really cool. Or it could be your alien, and if they shoot your alien, what happens is do you move down a level?
Nope.
Or can you just not move?
Cannot move on your next turn, and your opponent gets to draw another card, which is great for them because they're trying to hide their own alien. So the more cards they have, the better they can hide their alien. You have
this giant, like, resplendent thing in front of you. So the other thing, it's kind of neat because you can sort of bluff things out. So you can put a shield on one card, and then somebody will double zap through the shield and then find out it was nothing all along, and you're like, ha ha, eat it. It's just one of those things that, to me, it wasn't that great. It wasn't bad. I mean, if somebody busted it out and said, "Hey, you want to play this again?" I mean, I would give it a go because it doesn't take that long to play. It can, depending on how hard somebody's going, but it's one of those things too where if it starts to run really long, you can just go, "Oh, that guy's close to the top. I'm just not going to shoot at him." Yay. um, I think Roy's big gripe is the MSRP for the game is kind of high for what it is.
Yeah, the game is beautiful. It has awesome components with this like rotating board, and like the art's really cool and everything.
And then the stuff you put on the rotating board can flip over. So there's like environmental hazards. So there's a basic game and an advanced game, and that's really neat. But
I'm not sure if it's marked up for Gen Con or if like the actual MSRP is $60, but it's like $60 for like a game that's like super light, take that, like jump on each other game. Like, oh my gosh, you
is
might
it
get
marked
out.
up because of the artwork? Like, how are the components?
The components are awesome,
are
except
good.
for like the characters are like on little like standees, so they're not anything to write home about. But the cool thing is like you have this giant moon that goes around the board, and that's the spinner.
But is it like
how much
thin,
energy you
cheap
get.
cardboard?
No, I mean it's
No,
hardcore. I feel like it might be slightly. My thing is it's overproduced for like how, I guess, good or deep the game is. Like the game's a lot of. I mean, you can do some bluffing and stuff like that, but it's really just like luck on where they zap your thing, because they can zap multiple things in a turn, so you're probably going to get found out if multiple people try to zap you, and so then you're not going to progress, and then somebody gets lucky and they don't find their alien and they win the game by getting to the top. Granted, we only played the basic game, so it might be a little bit crazier when you play the advanced game, but I really feel like all that does is change up a few of the items and makes it so
harder
to get to the top with the different territory things. So you might have to use the move action to move around the board a little bit more than we did. But overall, it's just like get lucky for them not picking your alien, and if they can't find the right one, then they get to the top and the game's over. And
yeah,
it was a little bit too small for what it was, especially for that $60 price point. Like you can buy Blood Rage for that much money. So
the way it felt for me was if Hasbro were to make that game, it would be like a $30 game maximum.
Right.
And it could easily be like a Hasbro game that is $30. And it's not that it's bad. And if you have a group of friends that is very like take that and you think that would be something you would be interested in, I mean, I would definitely say give it a try first, just because it does have a high MSRP. But I mean, it might be interesting to some people. It just wasn't exactly my cup of tea.
Yep. And that is Moonquake Escape.
Yeah.
Next is a kids game from Haba. Rob.
Game of the Con?
Game of the Con.
No, not the Game of the Con, but I am going to talk to you about not Princess Necklace, Princess Mina.
Oh.
Princess Mina. I was actually really excited about getting this game because my daughter is a princess. She reminds me all the time that she's a princess and that I'm her king, and then mommy's the queen, but sometimes she's the king when she's mad at me. So Princess Mina is a match game where you have all these different little pieces and they have matches. So there's like 2 rubies, 2 diamonds, 2 gems, 2 whatever, a bunch of different colors, and you flip all these pieces over and you're trying to find matches. If you find a match, you get to put them on the necklace, and you get to make a necklace. Now everyone gets to pick a princess at first to be their main princess person, and then after you get a match, like for example my daughter got 2 blues, so she put 2 blues down first, and then 2 emeralds, and then rubies, and a bunch of other stuff. That was her necklace, and I think the first 1 to 4 or 5 matches win. She loved this. My niece was also in town. The girls played it, had a blast. The problem is, and it's not normal problems, just for me as a paranoid person, they wanted to wear the necklaces all day, and I was like, no, because you're going to lose pieces. Like, don't do that. And so, like, as soon as they took the necklaces off, because they were then playing, like, ballerina or something, I was like, hey, y'all, wear them necklaces. Let me put them back in the box. So, but the other good thing, though, is, like, it's a Haba game. Haba's got good components, but Haba's also not going to break your wallet. I think I bought this game for $12 at the Haba booth. And that's at the Haba booth, so I know if you bought it on Amazon, it'd be like under $10. It was a lot of fun. My daughter really likes the game. But I just thought, for any person out there, like I know Roy's got Violet, or he's got his daughter. If in the future, if you've got a daughter who's interested in princess necklaces, or whatever child you have that is interested in princess necklaces. It's a cute, fun little game. It's a matching game, so it's good for helping their memory, build that whole
And colors.
memory and colors and stuff like that. So we really enjoyed it. I bought several games at Gen Con, but the games we've played multiple times have been all the Haba Kid games that I bought. I bought 4 Haba Kid games, and we've played all 4 Haba Kid games at least 2 or 3 times each. So, but Princess Necklace, cute, fun, another great game from Haba, especially for that little person that loves to decorate. Or not decorate, but design and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
So,
Well, this next one I'm going to speed through since I talked about it a ton last week, but it is Seven Ronin. It is a asymmetrical 2-player simultaneous unit placement game where you're trying to deduce what your opponent's doing. One player plays the Ronin, the other player plays the ninja. The ninja are trying to come in and pillage the village, and the Ronin are trying to defend the village and hold off to the last second. The mechanics are basically everybody's placing their units on the board at the same time. The ninja can place in a few places. There's a bunch of Ronins out there, but they only have a certain number of hit points. Ninjas are trying to come in and sneak through where you're not placing Ronins to defend, and if they get through, they get to trigger abilities which are going to help the ninjas out. Then the Ronins are trying to block off the different areas and kind of like combo and like trigger their abilities. Like the Ronins have a guy who can heal your guys if he's not in a place with ninjas. Then they have an archer that can shoot guys out in the field if he's not in a place with ninjas. They have a Ronin that's good at like killing the ninjas if he's placed in the same place with them. They have a guy that if he's placed without one, he can ride across the field to get where some are. So there's all these different cool Ronin abilities you can trigger, and it's just trying to get into your opponent's head and figure out where they're going to place the units because they think that special ability is really good, but maybe they know you're going to block it because it's really good, but maybe they know that you might not block it because it's really good because you know that so it's all of this trying to get into your opponent's head and figure out what's going on. It always comes down to like the last samurai. There's only like 1 or 2 Ronin left and they're just barely hanging on. There's only a couple ninjas left to pillage the village, and if they get placed in the correct place and you don't defend correctly, the ninjas are going to win, but if you block them off at the right places, you can make it so that the Ronin win. So it's very balanced, very close game. 2-player asymmetrical, 7 Ronin. Lots of fun. Demoed it at Gen Con like crazy. Yeah. The next one is the Rune Wars Miniatures game. This is a game that was announced at Gen Con. This was the big announcement for the Fantasy Flight in-flight report. They like saved it to last. Rob's not improving. But basically this is a fantasy tactical miniatures game with unpainted minis. The minis come like mostly made, but it's like the tray movement, very much like the Warhammer miniatures game, which is no longer in print because they switched over to Age of Sigmar. But this is supposed to go for those like miniature hobbyist games. Fantasy Flight has X-Wing. This game has a lot of similarities to X-Wing. There is template like movement, so you have like the curves and the straights that you put like along the edge of your units and move the guys along. But this game, it's a little bit more flexible. If you say, hey, I'm going to do a curve, well, then you can actually, when you take your action, you can be like, well, I'm going to curve this way or curve that way. You don't have to like nail down the specific way you're curving. There's a lot more like interesting fiddly rules. Like there's a whole bunch of like these rune discs you like throw out on the board at the beginning of a round that can trigger special abilities on different units, which feels very much like the Runed Bound board game because it has like those combat discs. But like you'll have like a unit that says, hey, if you have some green runes, this guy can move extra spaces on the turn. You can do a movement where he can move like 1 forward for each green rune. So if at the beginning of turn a whole bunch of green runes were out, then you can do that. Or maybe these guys do extra damage if there's red runes. So it's just kind of like a random element to the game for these runes. Then basically you've got the normal like attack and defense dice for like damage. You get into base combat and you can roll the dice, and depending on the unit, they're going to have different special abilities and roll a different amount of dice. It's kind of interesting, like with the trays. The way it works is the number of trays you have in the front of a flank basically is the times you multiply the number of dice you get to roll, but the number that you have deep is the amount of rerolls you get. So if you make it so they're super deep, you can have like consistent damage because it's like, okay, I missed with these, but I'll get to roll. But if you have it wider, when you roll the damage, it's like, okay, I got 2 hits. Well, since I had it 3 deep, that counts as 6 hits now. So it's kind of interesting the way you build like wide or deep depends on the damage that the unit does. You have your undead and your human guys, the Dokthan and the whatever the undead are called. They have like super interesting weird names in Rune Wars. But yeah, if you're looking to get into a fantasy miniatures game, basically going directly after Games Workshop's Warhammer, Rune Wars miniatures game. I'm kind of sad about this. I think I said this last podcast, but like I love Battlelore, and Battlelore is like a lighter miniatures game, and like this is the exact same setting. So I'm kind of sad that they didn't just announce more Battlelore, but they're going for a more like full-on like lifestyle hobby game with this miniatures game. Rob shook his head in disappointment. What do you guys think?
You go first, Matt.
I think it would be interesting to see, because like you were saying, it seems to be going directly after the Games Workshop crowd. Not that it's really going to pull any sway away from the 40K scene, but I think it would be interesting to see behind the scenes if that was a decision that was made because of the merger.
I wonder if it was a decision made because like Warhammer itself stopped, because Warhammer had that tray movement where you have all these fantasy units where you're moving in trays, and they said, hey, we're no longer doing Warhammer at all. We're going to do Age of Sigmar, and Age of Sigmar made it a lot more, like they changed the rules a lot, made it so that they're single bases, they're not moving in trays anymore, and it made it more like Warhammer 40K. So they now have round bases instead of square bases. Well, this is like square bases and moving in trays, basically exactly like Warhammer. It's going to be a lot simpler than Warhammer, because if you know anything about Games Workshop games, like you're like looking at tomes of rules, and like people spend more time arguing over the rules than actually playing those games. So there should be a lot less of that. I feel like it'll be a lot easier to get into, but I feel like it's going to be a little bit more complex than like X-Wing and stuff is. So it'll be a little bit deeper, like more of a hobby, like you can paint the miniatures and get all your stuff going with that game. But yeah, Rune Wars miniatures game. Rob, you've been waiting to talk about this all episode. What do you think?
I'm very disappointed in Fantasy Flight. I like Fantasy Flight. They make Fantasy Flight games makes really good games. But if I were to classify Fantasy Flight as anything right now, I would classify them as Hollywood. They are not making anything new. They are just making repeats and second and third editions of everything. There is no ingenuity of creativity going on there, and it really just kind of hurts. That's another reason why I absolutely love Plaid Hat Games. All of their stuff coming out is brand new stuff. I think the only cover that they've done for something was BioShock. That was it. Like, they're all original content. And Fantasy Flight, now being a part of Asmodee, with all of these creators and minds together and all these companies, you think they could come out with some new content or a brand new IP. Even an IP that's famous that nobody's done before, because maybe nobody's had the rights for them and they haven't done it. And now they're going after something that they don't need to go after. The people that play 40K and they spend a lot of money on 40K, they're not going to play this game. And the people that are going to play this game are going to be the people that like the Battlelore stuff, but then they're not going to be able to afford it, and so they'll get like some base sets, but then it'll die. I really think this was a waste of time. I think something is going on internally with the company. I think that they need to go ahead and, if you want to redo some IPs, come out with the next freaking Twilight Imperium. We've all been begging for it for years. We've all been fans. Even come out with Twilight Imperium 3 new edition. Come
Expansion number 4.
Or just like update the stuff, right? But you're coming out, like last year it was Runebound. Runebound was nice, but they didn't even do that great. They did like the little discs,
and that was the
stuff
second
like that.
edition. So,
and that was the second edition, and they also came with Fury of Dracula
like
last year.
Fourth edition or something on that.
I will give them this: Forbidden Stars was a brand new IP last year. Not brand new IP; it was a brand new game with an IP that they had. Right. It wasn't a reskin. Now, Rune Wars Miniatures is a brand new game,
but it's still very X-Wing-ish.
It's very X-Wing-ish, and it's very Battlelore-ish. And they're just continuing to beat an IP to death. I understand beating Star Wars to death. Star Wars deserves to be beaten to death. And the thing about it, it's got the Force. It's never going to be beaten to death. Star Wars is internationally known. Everybody knows about Star Wars. You're not going to be able to do it to death. But, like, do something else. And I really had a lot of hopes this year for Fantasy Flight's big announcements. And to see that it was this, just really kind of just like, I don't know. Like, it just let some more out of my balloon. I'm not going to, like, jump off the Fantasy Flight bandwagon.
I mean, I love their games. They're solid. But I was talking to Marty about the exact same thing when we were at Mega MooseCon. He's like, what's the last game they have that has been new or, like, actually come out that's, like, not an IP or not an existing, like, IP that they already own? Because they have their Arkham Horror IP, which is Lovecraft, but they call it their Arkham Horror IP, and they base things off of that. And then they have Rune Wars, and then they have Star Wars and Game of Thrones and the Warhammer universe. So they do the Warhammer 40K and the regular Warhammer stuff. But like everything's been like that same stuff that they've been coming out with over and over again. So it'd be interesting to see some more ingenuity or like something out of the box come out that just takes everybody by surprise, or they're just going to stick with their same brands that they know, you know.
I wonder if it will be something where you'll see, well, you won't necessarily see it, but it might be one of those things where certain games that are developed at different developers under Asmodee either shift to Fantasy Flight, or certain games that are developed from Fantasy Flight shift to different developers because of how Asmodee wants to sort of pitch things. So like it has the potential to like level out all of the companies that are currently under the Asmodee branch. So like you might see Fantasy Flight sort of start going down, but then you'll see like Plaid and Z-Man Games start like rising up to kind of match the same level that Fantasy Flight has.
Hold on, but they already were rising up.
Yeah. I know.
And that's what scares me so much about this merger. And we talked to Colby a little bit at Gen Con, or at least I talked to Colby, and I know he's excited from a business point of view to be able to have access to their distribution and to reach the markets that Fantasy Flight is in, or Asmodee's in, that Plaid Hat is not in.
Oh, yeah,
I get that.
That's big.
But, you know, if we were to take away the Asmodee umbrella, let's just remove that real quick, Fantasy Flight, up to this Gen Con, if I had to name one company that I would ride or die forever, it'd be Fantasy Flight. I just like more of their games. They have a bigger history than Plaid Hat Games, and I like a lot of their games. I really do. But after this Gen Con, with the release of more expansions, and expansions are good, don't get me wrong, but no brand new IP, no brand new content. I'm kind of over it. Like Plaid Hat Games is now my number one ride or die board game company, at least for the time being, until we see some stuff happen, because of the creativity and the artists that they use. I mean, I love Isaac Vega. I love his brain and his mind and the way that he's able to come up with these stupid ideas. Like, he told me we could talk about it. His next big game, this is so dumb and it sounds so awesome. His next big game, Samurai Starship Troopers. Or was it Starship Troopers Samurai or something? I mean, who thinks of this stupid stuff? It's so amazing. The way he was explaining it and the way that they're going to fight and the minis and everything going on. It sounds so awesome. I'm so excited. Why can't Fantasy Flight, having all of the resources that they have, why can't they do something like this? This is what is showing me, or for my conspiracy theory, it is pointing me in the direction that gaming is going to start to go down. It's almost like we're at the plateau of the hierarchy. But all these people, they're not coming out with anything new. Just like Hollywood.
Want to be like Monopoly, and then Monopoly this type of Monopoly, and then Monopoly this type of Monopoly.
But they are doing it. They are doing it Monopoly. But they are. There's just new. These are the new Monopolies.
Okay. It's the Monopoly for the hobby gamer.
Right. The whole 40K universe has been played out and played out and played out. Star Wars, which I'm a Star Wars fan, I get it. But Star Wars is big. I mean, anyway. I'm disappointed. I'm still going to buy some of their games. I'm not going to buy as many of their games. And I think it's a waste. And I wish that they would be creative. And that's it. I'm done talking with them. They don't deserve any more of my breath.
Do you want to move on to the next game that's just as divisive as our conversations about mergers?
This next game is absolutely freaking amazing compared to our last game that we talked about, because it was a brand new IP. They took a social deduction game, which I'm talking about, people. I'm talking about a game called Secret Hitler. Now, our group, Secret Hitler. Our group loves social deduction games. They're fun party games that you could get just about anybody to play the games. They may not play them more than once, but you can get them to play it at least once. So,
Oh
Secret
man.
Hitler adds a part into Secret Hitler that I haven't seen in other social deduction games, where you have parties, and then there's like traitors in the parties, but there's really not even traitors. You have a fascist party, you have a liberal party, and inside of the fascist party, you have Hitler. And so, in other social deduction games, you're either the werewolf or you're not. There's no the hunters working with the villagers, because a hunter wins if he kills a werewolf. He doesn't care about the villagers. And in like the resistance, everyone's a part of the resistance, but then there's a couple traitors. No, in Secret Hitler, some people are fascist and some people are liberals. And you can find out rather quickly depending on what some people say. Like, for example, Matt, all right, everyone close your eyes. Fascists, open your eyes. All right, you're with me. Fascists, close your eyes. I mean, crap, you're not with me. I mean, that's not what I
Oh
said.
man, that was
That was fantastic.
it's something.
It was fun. So Secret Hitler is, you have these two board states where you have a liberal board state and a fascist board state. And the point of the game is to have one group pass a number of laws to allow them to equal X amount of points to win the game. The liberal group wants to pass 6 laws, depending on how many people are playing, or 5. The fascist group wants to pass X amount of laws, or have Hitler voted as the
Chancellor.
chancellor in the game. Now, in the game, speaking of chancellor, there's a president person and there's a chancellor person. The president person can be Hitler. The president person always rotates clockwise to the person to the left who's always starting the game. The president person votes or chooses who they want to be their chancellor. Then everyone else votes if they want that person to be the chancellor. Now, where the voting comes into play is, I may know Roy's Hitler. I may have accidentally seen his card when I accidentally knocked it over or something, and I know Roy's Hitler. So I don't want to vote Roy to be the chancellor, because if Hitler gets voted chancellor after X amount of fascist laws have come into play, then the fascists automatically win the game. So you're going to vote to pass or to let the person become chancellor. Then, after somebody is announced chancellor, after eventually happens, the president is going to take 3 cards. You get a whole stack of cards. They have red symbols on them or blue symbols. It's simple artwork, but it's really cool. It looks like an old newspaper. The red artwork are fascist laws. The blue artwork are liberal laws. The problem with the game, and not that it's a problem, but the issue is there's only 6 liberal laws in this huge stack. Let's just say that there's about 20 laws in there.
17.
17? Okay, so 20 wasn't too far off for guesstimating.
Yeah.
But over half of them are fascist. And then you have a little over a third of them are liberal, and 2/3 of them are fascist. So you may have a liberal president, and you may have a liberal chancellor that gets voted in. But the liberal president draws 3 laws, and all 3 of them are fascist. Then the liberal president, after the voting has happened, he can't say anything, and neither can the chancellor. He's going to take one of those 3, and he's going to put it in the discard pile. Then he's going to hand 2 of those cards left over to the chancellor. The chancellor then is going to put that card, whichever he chooses, into the column that he wants to go for, whether it's fascist or liberal. And based on that, that's how you grow your different laws. Then, after those votes have happened, that's when everyone starts screaming and accusing each other. Because then we're like, Mr. President, did you have any type of fascist laws in there whatsoever? Did you discard that law? Well, only the president saw the 3 laws. So he can say, no, there were no fascist laws. And there really could have been one. He could have discarded one.
You mean liberal laws?
Liberal laws, sorry. Where it comes into play is if he does have a fascist law and a liberal law, and he passes both of those to the chancellor, and let's say the chancellor chooses the fascist law, then he can come out saying, hey guys, I know there was this, I put it in there, and he chose the fascist law, he's obviously a fascist, we all get on board, we hang the guy, we take him out on the streets, we beat him down, and then we know never to choose him again to be able to do anything. The game gets extremely heated during the law phase.
During literally any point. That game
but
is
like
just
you
heat.
can't we're very excitable people, so we talk all the time. You're not really supposed to talk while the laws are being passed. You're supposed to like see what's happening. But oh my goodness. So our great friend the voice of reason, Emerson Matsuuchi. One of the sweetest people. Matt and I have gone on record saying we could listen to him read the dictionary. So sweet, got the sweetest voice ever.
Nice
First
guy.
First of all, the man is a freaking genius. He looked at the stack and he was like, oh, based on this, there's only a 17.6% blah, blah, blah chance that this is going to happen and blah, blah, blah. And then he knows from the get-go, and here's how he knew. He knew that Matt was a fascist because Emerson made an argument, and his argument was very factual. Based off of X amount of things happen, this is what's going to happen. Very factual. Matt threw in there, but yeah, this could happen. The fact that Matt doubted Emerson, he was like, no, you're a fascist. And from that point on, he ran into Matt that he was a fascist. Anytime Matt...
The way I found it that Matt was fascist was I asked Matt if he was a fascist, and he said,
We made Emerson cuss, and I didn't think that was possible. Emerson
awesome.
stood up on his feet and said, you are an effing fascist. Now, I don't cuss. That's just not how I
shut your mouth.
But
it was so bad.
And he whispered in Matt's ear, "This is just a game. Like, don't take this any of this personally. It's just a game."
As soon as he sat down, he was like, "Hey, man, it's not personal. I'm just. Everybody's really into this game, and I'm trying to be into it too." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's fine. Let's go."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like, it was so funny because when it happened,
I think by everybody he meant like me.
Yeah,
and
Dan
him.
King was setting up Captain Sonar, and he was like, "Oh my God, did Emerson really just?"
I have
that?
never heard Emerson raise his voice at all. Like,
yeah, he's like, "What are you guys playing?"
It was amazing.
Man.
Well,
I love the game.
I enjoyed the game. Every single time I played that game, it has made my emotions rise. And I like a game like that can get my goat a little bit. Now, the last game I played, I was actually Hitler, and I kept my emotions down because I was trying to hide as Hitler, and it was fantastic.
Oh, you had the easiest role in the game? Oh, cool.
No, I didn't. When you're sitting right next to Emerson Matsuuchi and he already tells you who the two other fascists are, you don't have the easiest role. And so I'm just like, I'm butt kissing to Emerson. Oh, that's a great choice. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, and I'm spitting logic. And even when I get a liberal rule, I'm putting out the liberal stuff because I made you buy into it too, Roy. You're like, Rob, yeah, we're going to do this, and I'm going to make Rob the chancellor, and we're going to win the game. And you made me the chancellor, and I was like, gotcha. And right. Hitler won. It was
because all Hitler has to do is just be good the entire time, and everybody else. The thing that makes the game interesting to me is that it is exactly like Resistance, except a few things. It's like Resistance as if when you passed out the vote, like the pass or fail things, you randomly picked those out, and then one player got to pick what the next player was actually allowed to choose on that mission. You don't send multiple people out. You send like one person, or like you kind of like stage it where this person gets to choose part of the pass or fails and this person gets to choose the other part. But it's so hard. Like the deck is like slap full of fails. Like it's just all fails. And
that's what makes it different though, because
it does make it different. But I don't know that it makes it better.
That you can trust. But do you really trust them because they put in a fascist law? I mean, right. Do you really trust them? And so that's what I loved about it is
the game forces it to have 3 fascists so quickly because they're just going to come out, like because you're going to draw them, because there's going to be points where you have no choice. It's got to be fascist. Everybody involved in this is liberal. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to pass the blue liberal laws, the passes, and like make it win for the majority, which is the good guys. But even when you find out who you think most of the liberals are, Hitler doesn't have to act bad at all ever because he wants to be voted in with the good guys eventually. Yeah. So 3 will come up. Hitler acts exactly like a good guy, wants liberal laws to be passed, because who cares? There's going to be 3 fascists anyway. Like 3 fascists are going to come out. And then you just talk them into voting for you because you trick yourself into thinking that you're liberal also. You get voted as Hitler. Every single time we played this game, someone did as Hitler. The only chance that you're going to have of winning this game is hopefully a 4th one will come up and you'll get a chance to assassinate a person, and you get a chance to assassinate Hitler. And you'll have to be assassinating one of the liberals who's acting like they're a liberal, in hopes that you'll magically get the right person that's Hitler. I don't understand how the good guys can win this game. And when the good guys win this game, I'll probably like this game a little bit more. It seems so easy as the fascist. It seems so easy. Like it's like you literally just like the good guys are doing the dirty work for you because they're forced to. So, I mean, I don't know how to win as the liberals, so I don't know how I
You've
feel
also
about this
you've
game.
also only played the game 3 times, so your survey size is 3 roughly 15-minute games.
So how do the Liberals win, Matt?
So,
Well, kind of like what you guys were
I'll
going to
just-
do. You find out who the fascists are, and then you pass over them. We got lucky that I tricked you thinking I wasn't
The thing
a
is,
fascist.
but Hitler can
in that,
always
in
trick
that
you.
last game. No,
Because
in
if
that
you would have
last
picked
game,
Emerson, if you would have picked Emerson,
I couldn't pick Emerson. I couldn't pick Emerson. I couldn't pick the other person that I knew was on my team.
You could have picked Hector.
Hector wasn't on my team either.
Yes, he was.
was.
Hector
he
was.
was.
Because
Hector was on the
Emerson,
team.
you could have
Yeah.
picked Hector.
Oh yeah, it was
Emerson
Hector.
specifically said he was liberal.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because he had the president
But,
ability, which
the
let
thing
him look
is,
at.
like, I was dead at that point, so there were only 2 fascists. It was Rob and the other guy who turned 1 was like, "Oh, these dirty liberals." I mean, whoops.
Yeah.
So like,
Well, that just
I
goes
mean-
even to show more the testament that we knew who the fascists were, and we still could not win the game.
well, that's I don't know. I think my issue is that game. There were 4 people who didn't say anything and just pretty much got skipped over the entire game. And nobody used them because everybody was like, "Oh, cool! I'll just do the power players." And Rob goes, "Cool! I'll just jump into this power player boat," and that's what he did. And then it was just you, Rob, and Emerson, and you guys were the trio. And it was like, "Cool, the dream team." And Rob was just like, "Riding this boat all the way to victory here." And like that's why Rob assassinated me, just to solidify that sort of mindset. Like, I don't know.
I did. I thought it was fantastic.
It's the thing is you can't just go, "These are the good guys, this is how we're going to win." You have to like think more about it.
I guess I'm
Because there
so
are-
used to playing the resistance. It's all about finding the team and then sticking with them. But like Hitler is in with the good guys. Like Hitler
And
is one of the good guys.
The other thing is like you were
until the
so-
last second, then he says, "Oh, you voted for me. You lose. Haha."
Yeah.
The other thing is like you were so focused on getting those liberal policies out, like the fascist
Because we needed one more, we would have won the game.
I mean, you're not wrong. That would have that was a really close game.
It was.
But like the thing was like the fascist policies, if you enact a certain number of them, they start to give you power. So you can either look at a player's like loyalty card to figure out if they're liberal or fascist, or you can assassinate somebody, or the president gets to pick the next president, or at the very last one, a veto power is unlocked. So if the president and chancellor together decide to veto the 3 things that they were given, they can just scrap it all and then start again. So there's multiple ways to win, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to have fascist cards out.
Because
It's
it gives
just
you more abilities.
yeah, and it's going to happen because, like you guys said, it's 6 to 11, 6 liberal and 11 fascists. So it's really just trying to get the cards out with the people that you know are liberal, either because you found out or it's somebody that you trust who isn't like the golden god, an example of like liberalism over there. Like, you know, I feel like it's a very intricate game, and it definitely takes more plays to get sort of
What's
the
weird is the connection I have with Hector. Because I was able to pull that card again, and I was right on the money again. And it's
I
not
think-
every time with him, but sometimes I see when he's the bad guy, he just, to me, he glows different colors, and I'm like,
stand
bro,
it.
you're bad. And he is.
You called it before the cards were dealt, and then
Yeah.
I just opened it up and see Hector's Hitler, and I was like, man, we lose. This is it.
And you
Rob
guys
is gonna
still won.
Hector all game. Well, because you stopped. You were just like, you didn't go as hard on Hector as you typically did.
It was just, it bothers me. That ability.
Anyway, Secret
Even though
Hitler,
he's-
it's definitely an emotional game, and if you're looking for a game in the vein of Resistance, definitely check it out. It is definitely crazy. If you like to yell at your friends, that's a game
Yeah,
you need to play.
it's a very divisive game. If you can't tell by our sort of split court here, where everybody
I've
has a
seen
different.
Roy yell in games before, but I have never seen him yell so much in a game than our last Secret Hitler game.
Me and Emerson were feeding off of each other. It didn't really help because
Yeah,
I was
it-
yelling at you, and then Emerson was yelling at you, and it was just working great.
It was great.
Bro,
It was
Roy, you yelled at everybody. We had this guest girl who was one of Emerson's guests. You were screaming, "I don't trust you. I don't know what's going on. Tell me what you think."
I was
Tell
like,
me
I
what-"
know you're good. What are you doing?
Oh my
And then
gosh.
she would just be like, I don't know. And Roy was just like, that's Matt's fascist response. What's happening right now?
But you literally like
Everything was
scared
wrong.
her into a corner where like,
Oh,
it was just
God.
awesome. It
I was about to say, I know what you are. Just do the right thing. Play the game the way you're supposed to. I
Star
don't know.
Wars Destiny.
Oh, man.
Maybe we just
Yeah.
need to explain the rules better. I don't know. I think I have a better grasp on the game now, but I still don't understand how the liberals can win. And God help you if I'm ever Hitler. It's not even going to be a game. Anyway, Star Wars Destiny is the last game we have on the list for today. Star Wars Destiny is the game that was announced right before Gen Con. It is a collectible game from Fantasy Flight, the guys who do the LCGs, another Star Wars game IP. But it is a dice game where you're taking these different characters from the Star Wars universe and pitting them up against each other. Do you want to go Count Dooku against Obi-Wan Kenobi, or do you want to do something crazy off the wall like Obi-Wan Kenobi against Kylo Ren, see who can win in that sort of matchup? So it's got all these crazy Star Wars characters from the entire saga that you can mix and match together to fight against each other. It is a collectible game where you're getting a starter set and then booster packs with randomly different dice in it, and you're trying to build a little deck of these games. I actually went into this game hoping that I wasn't going to like it, but basically the mechanics are you have a character who has dice. You can roll those dice once during your turn. You can discard cards to re-roll the dice if you don't like it. So you're basically getting rid of your resources to discard. You get resources at the beginning of the game. Some of the faces of the dice give you more resources. You use those resources to play different cards. Like, okay, I played this card, which gives my Stormtrooper a blaster pistol, which gives him another dice that I can roll. So now I can roll this blaster pistol with his dice and hopefully do more damage. You've got, like, range combat damage and melee combat damage that you can do to your opponent's characters, and when you do that, they just take some hit point damage on their characters, and if you give them a hit points to the amount of life that they have, then they die off, and if you kill all their characters, you win the game. It doesn't seem like the cards that come out of your deck like normally give you more characters. They just give you like upgrades for the characters that you currently have. You're trying to upgrade your Stormtrooper with like grenades and blasters, and I was playing Stormtrooper and Kylo Ren, you're trying to give him a lightsaber and like some force power, so it gives him extra dice, so he's doing extra damage and getting you more resources, and you're re-rolling those and drawing cards, and the different symbols on the dice will let you re-roll things and draw things and do different amounts of damage, and this damage symbol means you modify and have extra attack value, but you have to have another dice that has attack on it. And it's like, it's overall a good game because it's got this whole back and forth mechanic, like I take an action, you take an action, I take an action, you take an action, so it goes back and forth really quickly, and then after everybody runs out of actions, that's the end of the round, both players pass, and you draw your hand back up to 5 cards. It actually feels very much like Ashes in that regard. Ashes is a lot more complex as far as like you have your starting 5 and all these different things, but as far as the quick back and forth of actions, it feels like Ashes does, and then finally somebody passes, you can continue to take actions if you still have them, or you pass 2 and start the next round. I was hoping the game was going to be worse than it was. It seems very solid. I went into it like with a negative like slant because I'm like, I hate collectible games. I don't want to play a collectible game. I want to play this so I can know what it is and tell the people like what this game is. If you're looking for a game that feels it's basically exactly what you expect it to be. If you've played CCGs or dice games or anything, or like Dice Masters-ish type stuff, it feels more solid like of a game than Dice Masters is. But it's like a good game, head-to-head, fighting with your 2 different Star Wars characters, and then you knock the other guy out. It seems like it'll be real quick too when you play it.
Sure.
But it's collectible, so I am gonna run the other way. So
you mean Fantasy Flight made another game that has a really big genre?
Yeah, I said that at the beginning
of a really
of the whole
big
rant.
Theme, huh?
But yeah, it's kind of funny because in the in-flight report, they're like, hey, we know we've been pushing this LCG model because they've been like bastions of saying, hey, living card games, we want you to not have to go chasing after rares. We want you to be able to get everything you can in the package when you buy it. You know exactly what you're getting. And now it's funny because like they're like, hey, there's people out there that like collectible games, and we want to make a game for them too. And we're like, really? Is it not just because it makes money? Like, but it'll be interesting to see how the game does. It's solid, but it feels like exactly what it looks like. It's not a bad game at all, but if that's what you're going for, you'll probably like it. And that is Star Wars Destiny.
I think it'll be really interesting to see what a lot of the fantasy, like how the Fantasy Flight games from Gen Con this year do over the coming years.
Well, the one that I'm most excited about out of all these announced ones, we haven't even played or demoed or anything. And that is the next thing is we still have a stack of a bunch of games that we're really excited about playing. We'll probably do more in-depth reviews after we actually play them. There's our Cry Havoc, Mansions of Madness, other games like that we're really excited about. So look for those in upcoming podcasts whenever Rob comes to game night. I'm just kidding.
Bro, I am super excited for the Rise of the Sun.
Rising Sun?
Rising Sun. We talked about that a little bit on the last podcast.
Yeah,
that
I know. Listen,
that's exactly what that face was in the middle of the podcast I made. I was looking at the minis and I found a new one I like.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I just like Fantasy Flight keeps dropping. I already really like Cool Mini or Not. But I would say Cool Mini or Not and Fantasy Flight now are probably tied for the 2 spot for favorite company. But like brand new IPs, they're letting artists do what artists do. Cool Mini or Not is also acquiring small companies, so I guess they're trying to be an Asmodee, but I like the way that they're doing. I hope they don't sell out. I hope they don't sell out to Asmodee. But man, this Rising Sun, it's the predecessor to No, it's the predecessor of Blood Rage, but it's based more off of diplomacy than other games. Like, right. And the minis look amazing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited for. For games that were announced at Gen Con. The only Fantasy Flight game that I'm announced for is actually an expansion. I'm excited for the new Imperial Assault expansion that's from Return of the Jedi with the pits and stuff like that. And you got the big, I can't remember the monster's name.
Rancor.
I'm excited for it when the app comes out.
Yeah.
I'm not excited until the app comes out. Like, I only bought a couple mini expansions. Depending on how well the app does, I may buy some of the bigger expansions. Like, if the app does well, I'd get the Hoth expansion.
Add more characters, add more monsters.
Yeah, but for right now, until the app comes out, I think Hoth and then the Rancor one would be my next 2. But yeah, nothing.
Oh my gosh, we need to close this podcast down. This podcast has been super long. Thanks so much, anybody who made it all the way through. You guys are amazing. We love meeting you guys at Gen Con, and hopefully we will see you guys next time. Make sure to hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. We stream these normally on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, follow, like, subscribe, all those things.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing and great, and we'll see you
guys
guys next time.
Are amazing. You see that girl with the bow and arrow and everything?
Right. The one that is my favorite now is the one to the right who just has a basket on his head who's playing a recorder. Like, what? It's so good. I'm like, that's my dude.
Peace. That was
Look
actually
at this
a really
dude.
good ending.
Hey, yeah.
Oh my!
He's playing a recorder.
How long was this podcast? When did we start? We started this at 9.
The Skype call's been going for 2.5 hours. So.
Yeah, we started a little after 9.
Oh yeah, I can see that right there. 2 hours and 62 minutes is how long we've been streaming for.
So 3 hours.
We actually have a few people like in the chat.
No, not 262. Cool. It says only 2:30.
Oh yeah, 2 hours and 26 minutes. Sorry, dyslexia sometimes.
Yeah, because 62 minutes is another hour and 2 minutes.
Cam, which is one of the guys who's all about like the Plaid Hat podcast, he actually says that Forbidden Stars is a reskin of StarCraft, so there's still reskinning games there. So. Oh man.
I gotta go. My wife's texting me. When are you getting off?
We're working, man.
On a side note, that email that you sent about helping out with a board game draft or whatever.
Hey, anyway, so we will check you guys next time. Thanks so much for checking out. Make sure to subscribe. Peace.